So the first order of business, I'm going to move to enter executive session in accordance with open meeting law MGL C 30A, Section 21A pursuant to Purpose 2 to conduct collective bargaining sessions with the UFCW with the intent to return to open session. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Actually, have to do a roll call vote.
Oh, roll call vote because it's executive session. William?
William, yes.
Sarah Bess?
Yes.
Margaret, yes. Okay, we are going into executive session. We will be back.
I'm going.
I'm just going to go over there instead of.
Oh, just
Into that far corner
just Pelham.
where we can't hear you.
Okay, have fun, y'all.
Sarah, just Pelham. Oh,
I was the rep to the negotiations, so I can tell them. Oh, okay.
You were going to their meeting.
All right, so what exactly did you say?
Yeah, that's how I, right?
I did it. My fault.
I was wondering, because I was like, I'm running late. I'm still at home, but it makes sense. Like,
One point in my career, I was an insurance adjuster.
Oh, yeah. I
So when you
actually
said,
didn't realize
Oh,
I
no.
got here. Oh, we didn't
You're
have
like,
to be
oh,
here.
agenda is a vote on the UFCW memorandum of understanding / contract. I would take a motion.
Are there words?
I can read it. I forgot we have it written here. Sarah very kindly wrote it out here. I move to approve the memorandum of agreement between the Amherst, Pelham, and Amherst Pelham Regional School Committees and UFCW Local 1459, dated June 4th, 2024, and also the 2024-2027 contract with UFCW Local 1459, consisting of the current 2020 to 2024 contract as modified by said MOA. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? No? All right, then I will take a vote. All those in favor? All right, it passes 3-0 unanimously for us. All right, the next item for us is the Superintendent Summative Evaluation Review, and there is a document here. Why is it doing that? Oh, I've got it. Nope, yeah, I got it. Okay. So, is that something you can put up on the screen, Doug?
Yeah, just a moment.
That did a very weird thing for me.
Yeah, it loads, it shoots you, it's a link.
Yeah, it downloaded, and then I had to open the download.
Yeah, if it's not a PDF, it gets
Yeah.
funky.
Well, okay. So I will start. So this is the 2023-2024 Pelham School Committee evaluation of Doug Slaughter, our interim superintendent. I'll just read this short evaluation summary. Dr. Slaughter, the Pelham School Committee appreciates your leadership as interim superintendent during the 2023-2024 school year. You accepted this role during a time of crisis in the district and the school community, and because of your commitment to the well-being of students, faculty, and staff, you leave us all in a better place. Thank you. The first page here has the overall performance rating. We rated you, 2 people rated you proficient, 1 rated you exemplary. And student learning, you were rated as moderate by 1 person and high by 2 people. The goals, the 4 goals are listed here. I don't think I'm going to read all of this. But there are a few comments here to go along with them, and then the document goes on, and I think this is more for the public, the evaluation process, and then you'll find the summary of ratings on the goals with the indicators listed with each goal, and then the ratings on the standards. And finally, you will find our summary comments at the end of the document. So, William or Sarah Bess, would you have anything you want to say?
I don't.
I don't know, just thank you.
Okay. Well, again, I would just like to say thank you very much, Doug. I think that you came in, as this says, at a very difficult time. You kept us going, and while not everything is where we want it to be, you've helped us make a lot of progress on some of the difficult issues, along with things like supporting the iReady math program and the progress that at Pelham. I guess I will mention that they reported to us at our last meeting that they exceeded their 5% improvement goal for the year. And one person suggested that we disaggregate the data so that we can look at the various groups, such as special ed, Hispanic, Black, and ELL, just so we have a better understanding of where they are relative to everybody's progress. And you did a marvelous, I have to say, a marvelous job with the budget. For the Pelham School, we lost 2 paraeducator positions, but we could have been in a much worse shape, as many of the districts are in our area. So thank you for that also.
You're welcome.
We have to vote yes, no?
That's a good question.
Nobody seems to know. Jennifer, do you know?
I think you should vote.
Yeah.
I think you accept
To
the
approve
document
it or
if
accept
To
if
accept
everyone's
it.
agreement.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Do I have a motion to accept the
To move to have an emotion, whatever. Move to have a motion to accept this document as Margaret presented to us for Doug's evaluation.
Sarah Bess? Would
I
you
would
like to second
second
it? Thank you. All right. All those in favor? All right. It's accepted. Thank you very much. And then, let's see, let me go back to my board docs. I am going to make a motion to adjourn the Pelham School Committee.
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor? All right, we are adjourned. Well, I have to
Oh,
stay
right, you
for
have to.
Junior 26.
Usually you have to.
I know. So Irv, it's your turn.
So calling the 26th School Committee to order at 6:56, I guess. So, I don't think, so I'll just do a roll call just to be sure. William,
Here?
Sarah Bess,
Present.
Margaret,
Present?
Sarah,
Present?
Irv, yes, and Bridget.
Here.
We're all here. And the purpose of this meeting is to reorganize. And since we're going to reorganize, we're going to have to do a call for nominations. And before we start, I want to make sure I will not be a candidate for any of these positions. So, can we have Sarah?
I would like to nominate William Scher for Chair of Union 26.
I will second that.
Oh, wait a minute.
Well, I guess,
I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
We're
Yep.
we're
Oh,
reorganizing.
anyone else? So you say anybody
Yeah,
else?
anyway,
and-
when I was thinking that, we were, all right, William. I was thinking we're gonna take nominations for everyone, but anyway, go ahead. So anyway, William is nominated. Any other nominations for chair? Hearing none?
Does he
Oh.
accept?
Does he accept?
Well,
I will accept, yes,
all right.
now that the heavy lifting is done.
All those in favor of William, the chair? Next is vice chair.
No, William doesn't.
Oh,
Oh,
William,
'cause
that's right,
he's,
that's right.
Yeah, so you're
I'm done.
passing the baton.
So, thank you. I guess I will take nominations for vice chair. Irv?
Bridget,
I'll accept.
Any other nominations for vice chair?
no.
Any discussion?
I'll second it so we
Okay,
can.
okay,
Yes.
thanks. So, how, everyone, I guess, would you vote for Bridget to be vice chair? Sorry.
Sure.
Okay, that passes unanimously.
Can I, before we
Yes.
adjourn, William, maybe you could explain for the public why we needed to reorganize? Because it's all the same people, so why are we reorganizing?
So Pelham just had their town election. So according to policy, after the last town yearly election, or I guess it's yearly for Pelham. After their yearly election, the last town, either Amherst or Pelham, whichever one occurs last, you have to reorganize at the next meeting.
Thank you.
So Pelham just had their last meeting, so we reorganized, and so we will reorganize again, I guess, this time next year. Because Pelham will have another election this time next year,
Wow, okay.
Jesus.
right, I think?
Well, yeah.
Unless, does Amherst,
Amherst
No,
doesn't,
not for,
does Amherst vote again in the?
No.
Well, nope. All right, then, yeah.
So then I guess you have to reorganize every year for
Next year after the election.
for Pelham. And maybe we'll have new people since we're still looking for people.
Yes,
Anyway,
we will.
so I would move to adjourn Union 26.
Point of order.
Oh, sorry.
I was the clerk on Union 26, so
Oh,
I
we
think
need a
we need
clerk?
to fill that spot, or not?
I don't,
You were the clerk for Amherst, which puts you on Union 26.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Union
thank you.
26 doesn't have a clerk. I don't think it has.
I'm with you now. Okay, sorry.
That's okay. So I would move to adjourn Union 26.
Second?
All those in favor? Thanks. We adjourn at 7:02.
All right, now I will call the Amherst School Committee to order, seeing the presence of a quorum. Deb Leonard is here and can come to the table.
Good night.
You may, yes, now you
I
can
may
go.
leave.
Goodbye.
thank you, Margaret.
Bye, Margaret. Thank you.
Pardon?
Thank you.
Sure.
Bye, Margaret.
Hi, Deb.
Bye, Margaret. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
I will see you
Yeah.
in August.
Yeah,
Yeah, possibly on the screen.
hopefully something for them for, but we'll see. I mean, it'll be. Just gonna say, yeah, just.
All right, so I am happy to present this summative evaluation for our district, for the interim superintendent on behalf of the Amherst School Committee. I did mark this as a draft in case committee members have, or anybody has found any errors or something that needs explaining. So you will have the opportunity to tell me if there's something that needs to be altered, but I will just go through the summary. With deep appreciation for his tireless efforts on behalf of our students, educators, and staff during a challenging time, the Amherst School Committee presents Dr. Douglas Slaughter with this summative evaluation of his performance as interim superintendent during the 2023-2024 school year. In general, the evaluations from committee members reflect moderate to high support for the work of the interim superintendent, his efforts towards meeting the established superintendent's goals, and for the general operation and management of the district this past academic year. Most committee members rated Dr. Slaughter's overall performance as proficient. One member rated it as needs improvement, and one member rated it as exemplary. 4 of 5 members rated Dr. Slaughter's impact on student learning as moderate, while one member rated his impact as high. With respect to standards, a majority of committee members gave Dr. Slaughter ratings of proficient on every standard, with one member giving a rating of exemplary on all standards, and 2 members giving ratings of needs improvement on 2 different standards. On the established goals, ratings were more variable except for Goal 1, for which 4 members felt that Dr. Slaughter made significant progress. I will stop reading. All comments made in the assessments by individual members have been appended at the end in Appendix 1. I've added some language occasionally just to make it clear what the comment is referring to. And I've also appended the goals, the superintendent's goals in full. So I very much want to thank Dr. Slaughter again for everything he's done. It was really working tirelessly. Long, long days, I know, doing so much to keep our schools going in really a tough year. So I'm sure we're all very appreciative. Now I will ask committee members if they wanted to either say anything or tell me to correct something in this document.
I just want to congratulate Doug and also say that when other people were running away from the fire, you ran towards it. I mark you as exemplary in all categories for that fact, because you exemplified the kind of leadership that steps forward in time of crisis, and you performed admirably. And I really want you to understand that I really saw you as you were going through this, and I really, really appreciated all you've done for our kids.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a comment or a correction, anything to? Nope, not necessary. I just didn't want to present it as final as if you had no opportunity for, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I just want to say thank you also on behalf of everyone for keeping the ship on a course. It was, well, I'll stop with that metaphor there, but it was heroic and noted by many people, not just these people.
Thank you.
All right, if no one has any corrections, then I will move that we accept this summative evaluation. If we do, I will simply remove the draft header and repost it as final. Is there a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? All right, then all in favor of approving this summative assessment? 5-0, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Slaughter. All right, Sarah, whoops, where'd Sarah Best go?
Service is over
She's
there.
right there.
Okay.
All right. So we'll call the Regional School Committee to order at 7:08. We don't have anybody remote yet. So I actually would like to ask the committee if they don't mind if we move the chair's update to next. It'll take 2 seconds. Okay. All right. So I wanted to take a moment to recognize and thank Doug and for the tremendous job he took on this year. This year was filled with all kinds of challenges, from bullying and harassment to budget shortfalls and plenty of others in between. Doug managed all of them with a strength and calmness that was unparalleled, all while keeping the kids at the forefront of our ship. Our ship was sinking when you took the helm and you helped us right the course, and we are better for it. I've greatly enjoyed working with you this school year, so I thank you as a school committee member and as a parent of the students in the district. I also want to take a moment to recognize and thank Debbie Westmoreland, because Debbie is retiring, and she is at the very heart of the district and is the motor that keeps everything running smoothly. She is a wealth of knowledge and the friendliest of faces. I am happy for her to start her retirement, her well-earned retirement, but will be sad to not see her face or hear her Texas twang. She will be greatly missed. So if we could all take a moment to give Doug and Debbie a round of applause to show our gratitude and appreciation for all their hard work and dedication they showed this school year and beyond. Thank you both so much.
You're welcome. And I concur on the thanks for Debbie, because it is no doubt that having excellent partners is critical to the operation of the district, and I'm certainly very, very grateful and thankful for the opportunity to work with Debbie many years, but really a tremendous amount indirectly this year. So her efforts are really quite phenomenal, and she will be missed. We have new people coming in, and new faces to get familiar with, and a sincere thanks and appreciation to Debbie and all her work for all the years, as well as other retirees we have as well. But thank you.
Just as school committee, we get to work with Debbie a lot, and she's just so lovely and so smart. Jen?
Is now an appropriate time to chime in with thoughts about Debbie and Doug?
Yes,
or should
absolutely.
We? Okay.
Nope, now's good.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to Debbie Westmoreland. She's been with the district for many years. I believe 7 superintendencies, and her institutional knowledge is unmatched, as is her kindness and her competence. She made several to many recommendations and suggestions regarding the superintendent search when it came to communication with the community and engaging the community, and she made the process better and she made the communication better. She is smart and skilled and capable, in addition to being a pleasure to work with, and I will miss her a lot. Thank you, Debbie. I also want to say thank you to Doug. Doug, you stepped up when our districts were going through a crisis. You stepped into a situation that was fraught and complex in a myriad of ways. I really appreciate Irv's analogy that while other people ran from the fire that they either started or it was their responsibility to put out and they ran from it, you ran towards it. And I really appreciate that, your willingness to serve as acting and then interim superintendent. You had to do some really hard things, and I'm thankful to you. I'm also grateful for the future role that you're going to play in onboarding Dr. Herman. And having that consistency and having you being the through line between the past, the present, and the future is going to be really beneficial for our districts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
So I first met Debbie as a parent, as many of us did. And over the years, she was the person who you went to and you just relied on to follow through, to give you the information you were seeking, and to do it in a very grounded and affirming way. And my reflections on her service here in the time that I've known her is that, you know, Amherst, when where only the H is silent, there's a lot of bickering, a lot of difference of opinions, but if you say, well, Debbie Westmoreland said, she's like our unity figure. She's the one that everyone's like, oh, okay, well, she said it or she did it. It just seems like she's the thread that really connects us all, and I appreciate her presence and her service to the district.
So Debbie Westmoreland, she was here longer than I've been on the school committee. And she has been a constant in the life of the schools. I've worked with her over the years, and I've always came to depend on Debbie for her consistency and her intelligence and her respect for the process. As I said to you, Debbie, in the toast that I made at your farewell, I will miss you, and I am thankful and I am honored to have known you.
Excellent. Okay, we can go back to our regularly scheduled meeting now. I just wanted to make sure. Yes. Yep.
I have a quick question, point of order. I couldn't get on the live stream on YouTube. Do we know that it's, okay.
Yeah, they were working on it. I think they've
Okay.
been having a little struggle with that,
Yep.
but I think they're trying to get it resolved. I'm not sure
Okay.
if it's fully resolved or not, but.
Good, thank you.
Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program. So we will,
If I may say one quick thing.
yes.
So Debbie just texted me to say, will you please give them all my thanks and tell them it's been my honor and privilege.
Oh,
Aw.
we've all had too many feelings.
And we got the thumbs up that we're live, so.
Yeah.
Trying to go back to our policy fun parts. Okay, so jointly, Amherst and the region are having a first read of policy JICFB and policy JICFC. Would you like to take this away, sir?
Sure, if you can click on the highlighted one, the first one, the JICFD that says highlighted.
The link itself, you mean?
No, go, it's like the fourth one. It says highlighted version of
Oh, I see.
anti-bullying,
Sorry. Yep, will do.
JICFD.
It actually has the word highlighted. I get it.
Yeah.
And I'll share that tab.
Okay.
And I'll make it a little bit bigger too.
So it's a little confusing in that the formats have totally changed from the current policy to what we're proposing. So I tried to marry them by doing these highlights versus looking at the old document and the new document. So the red highlights are what was in the original policy that we're no longer going to have in the policy. It doesn't mean that we're necessarily doing away with it, it's just the words have changed, or it's in a different section. The green highlights are suggested additions or changes, and then the blue highlights are additions, deletions, or alterations suggested by legal counsel that we, as the policy team, the policy subcommittee, did not agree with. And so I wanted to highlight them so that we could discuss them as a group. Everything else that is in white, it was already there, and if it is in green, that means that the legal counsel also agreed with it. So it's just the things in blue or the things that are in question that we need to talk about. Yes?
Is the text in green, I think you mentioned to me earlier that some of this may come from an MASC,
I
the
did,
new
so
policy,
it
or is
is-
it you developed the language?
Most of the language we did not develop,
Uh-huh.
and the timelines we did not develop that are in here, they are from MASC's sample policy. And so I did, there is a link on the,
Oh.
not here, but there is
The board
a
docs.
link,
Yeah.
and you could pull it up and you could tell that, I mean, there were a few words that we did create ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
but the timelines and the meat of it came from MASC. I guess, if we want to, well, do we want to go through, how do we do this? It's my first time to really do a big policy like this, so I apologize.
Maybe just ask question for
Yeah, are
questions.
there any questions? I don't know if everyone has read through, I don't feel like I need to read through it myself, though. So does anyone have any questions?
Sarah?
Sure, thank you. So I'm looking under cyberbullying, number 1. And so I guess this was existing text.
Correct.
All right, the creation of a web page or blog. There are many other kinds of accounts, like if you're impersonating somebody on Instagram, or so. Should this be expanded? This text? Any kind of social media account that is impersonating another person. Well, it's kind of redundant. Impersonating someone.
William, I can,
Go ahead.
I mean, some of that discussion was encapsulated in the statement, including but not limited to.
Right.
The-
And if you look at the
This
very
is
top.
further down. No, this is under cyberbullying specifically.
Right, but if you look at the very top, it says cyberbullying, not at the very top, but the
Yeah.
section cyberbullying is bullying through the use of technology or any electronic communications, which shall include but not limited to. And so then that's, cyberbullying also includes, so it's kind of, this targeted list is like also in addition to what the top says.
Okay, but students, do they write blogs? Do they
Well,
have
I
web
did-
pages?
because what it
I
says
mean,
here, if you look at, it says cyber, at the very top, it says
Yeah.
cyberbullying, is bullying through the use of technology
I
or
guess I
any
don't know
electronic
what's-
communication.
Okay,
So I think that would incorporate social media.
It says internet communications and instant
I know, but then I
messages are-
don't see why list this also includes. I mean, because it is included. I mean, web page and blog is an electronic thing, right? So I guess I don't know why it's being listed. Yeah.
I think, are you answering the question?
Yeah, I
Oh.
think, so this is specifically about impersonating somebody else, and the other part is about using the technology to bully somebody. And so this is more specifically about the type of bullying that's occurring by just simply impersonating somebody else. But
Then
think-
then I would suggest it also includes impersonating someone in an online
It
or
says-
electronic. So that the emphasis is on the impersonation, not on the web page or blog.
Bridget?
I just wondered if we're at the same place, Sarah, because I think that's what number 2 says, right under it. Is that,
I think she's just saying
Where?
that this is redundant.
I think it is, I agree. In which case, yes.
So I just want to say in general, when we, like, our process and doing our first read is like the big committee is giving input, and then the policy subcommittee takes that input and decides what to do with it. So we don't necessarily need to refute or rebut input at this point. We can just take it in and then decide as a committee what to do about it, because this is the first read and there'll be a second read. All that being said, I think I agree with what Sarah said, and like we could tighten up the language, but also I think that, like, if someone did create an Instagram account that was impersonating someone else, they wouldn't get off and be exempt because it wasn't a web page or a blog. So I think both things are true, and I think, like, this is good input, and everyone should give their input, and the subcommittee should just take the input. Thank you.
Bridget?
I just wanted to note two things, which is I agree with the committee in terms of eliminating the if possible from the 3 days and the 14 days. And then the second thing I wanted to say is if you'd considered having the principal's designee be a group or a team of people, because it seems like, having read the Title IX reports really closely, that where we got in trouble was where one person maybe interpreted things a certain way, or one person was too busy to act on something. And then it seems to me if you had, even a team of 2 people, that you'd have some redundancy built into the system, and that's usually more helpful.
So I think as a designee doesn't necessarily mean one specific person every time, right? So, like,
I'm just saying, I think it should be more than one person. Like, if you know within a certain amount of time, you've got to sit down with another person and handle something, that it creates more of a gravity and more eyeballs to get something handled. That's my feedback.
Sarah?
All right, so the top of page 2, I guess it's still under, well, it's kind of in between, just at the top where it says bullying is prohibited in all cases in which, and then, yeah, that's already been said, or at least I would suggest that that's already been said right at the top of the first page, so you might consider whether it's necessary.
I'm sorry, can you say again?
Yeah, so at the top.
Page what?
So bullying, in green, third paragraph, bullying is prohibited in all cases in which, and then there are 3 bullets. I think that it duplicates much of what's on page 1 under bullying, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It's for bullying and cyberbullying, so it's
But
incorporating
it just said,
both of them.
I would just ask you to.
I understand.
I mean, if
We will
it's a
look at it.
subset of bullying, you've already
Right.
said this about bullying, so why say it again? So. I also have, if I can make another observation. So the green under reporting, and maybe the investigation procedures, and quite a bit of that. It's in green, so I guess it's from MASC.
Correct.
But I'm just struck by it seems to be procedures and not policy. And, I mean, I'm new at this, but I didn't think policies got so detailed. I thought that's what the bullying implementation plan in part is for, so.
Sorry.
And I wouldn't want them to conflict.
Sorry, tell me again, which section are you referring to?
Reporting,
Page 3.
reporting and investigation procedures, all the new green language. Some of it is fairly detailed about how the process, how complaints will be investigated, and quite specifically, or prescriptive. And there's certainly virtue to that, but I wouldn't want it to conflict or be different from what's in the bullying implementation plan that was just passed. So that's just my concern.
Do you have an answer? And then Jennifer?
Yeah, I would just say that legal counsel agreed that it was fine. And I would also say that those words did come from the MASC suggested policies.
Okay. Well, I would ask you to just double check with the bullying plan or whatever. Yeah.
Jennifer?
Can you be more specific, Sarah, about is there any sentence or portion
well,
in
it's-
particular that you think is a procedure and not a policy?
Oh, in so many days this shall be done, and shall meet with these people, It's the how to investigate and the what to do after a complaint has been made. Just in general, to say, I mean, a policy is that we want all complaints of bullying or harassment dealt with promptly, maybe within 14 days or whatever. But then to be detailed about how that is done, to me, seems to go beyond policy.
Bridget?
I think I would say two things to that. One is I remember Dr. Brady saying that if we have a change in policy, that they'll alter the plan to align with it. And the second thing I would say is, like, policies in general are to instruct an institution in its best practices, and so sometimes specificity is necessary. And one of the problems we've had as a district is bullying
Not
reports that
enough.
go on and on and on. So I really am strongly in favor of having defined timelines.
Yep, Doug?
So just on that point for a second, I think I'm going to play devil's advocate just for you to consider this under the question of including the if possible. So if that language is not there and we don't meet those deadlines of 3 days, does that invalidate the results? So if we had a situation where we had bullying but we didn't do it within the 3 days, does that then invalidate the process? And what's the repercussions for staff who didn't meet the deadlines?
Oh, you go ahead.
So I think if you've got, I mean, if that context, about that is also included, then that's helpful. But I think I'm sort of playing devil's advocate here and presuming it is a case of bullying, but we missed the deadline. What implications does that have? And why we missed the deadline may have to do with who knows what, right?
Somebody's
We had
sick.
2 days and we were in the third day and it was an early release because of snow. Well, we had 3 school days, but they weren't full days. They couldn't complete it. I mean, I can make up all sorts of scenarios. I don't mean to be, I just want us to be as inclusive as we can, and understanding that also I respect that you want to set some hard deadlines and some expectations around that. So I'm not pushing back. I'm just playing devil's advocate to sort of prompt the thinking about what happens if it's not met, sort of what are the implications and repercussions, and does it invalidate process? If it's, if it was bullying but you did miss the deadline, does that invalidate it as bullying? And therefore, if we get challenged on that, where do we sit as a district?
I would say on the third page, the next page, where it says whenever possible, and that's about the 14 days. It does say in that paragraph, at the end of that paragraph, see where it says whenever possible in blue? At the end of that paragraph, it says, at a minimum, the principal or their designee shall contact the parents or guardians as to the status of the investigation on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So that one is built in without explicitly saying whenever possible. Right. It's saying, do it in 14 days, but at a minimum, contact the families. So we kind of felt like because we already have that clause built in, we didn't really need to have the whenever possible, because we do have, at a minimum, do this. So we will take it into consideration, if possible, on the other
Just pose it as a
section.
question.
Yeah, no, totally, thank you.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I appreciate the question and you playing devil's advocate, Doug. I think there's nothing in here that says if you don't meet this deadline, the results are invalidated. That's not a concern for me. I guess we could ask council if that would be a concern, if the deadline, if the timeline isn't not adhered to, does that invalidate the results? I don't think so. That wouldn't be a concern for me. As to your second question, what happens if the deadlines are not adhered to? I mean, if the deadlines are not adhered to, that means that the investigator is not in compliance with the policy. Whatever is the consequence when someone is not in compliance with the policy, I mean, there's no immediate, policy police is going to come down and discipline the person. But it gives a parent a venue to say to the school committee or to the superintendent, hey, this investigation was not in compliance with this policy. And maybe on a one-off basis, there are reasons, and there would be no, if the investigation was completed a day or a week late, there'd be no consequence. But if it's a pattern that we see or that we notice or that is brought to our attention that investigations are consistently not complying with the deadlines, we might we would have to decide as a school committee what to do about that. We may decide to amend the policy and make the deadlines longer if we think that functionally they can't be met in that time period. But so those are my reactions to that input, but certainly the subcommittee will take the input.
Any more thoughts or feedback on JICFB? Sarah?
Do you want to know about typos and stuff, or you're gonna note all that?
I know I
Like,
saw one
there's a
typo.
bunch.
There was a the that I saw in there, but
Maybe I'll just show you after the meeting.
I would like to just, just to bring everyone's attention to it, one thing that we had lots of discussions about was the appeal process. So I would like some feedback from people on that section that's in blue. We had added what's in green, and legal counsel recommends that there is not an appeal process section in this policy.
Did council explain why?
Because I
mean-
think they have other forms of, well, let me pull it up. I don't want to speak wrong. I apologize. Why is it not coming up? Sorry. Sorry, my email link went away.
Can I ask just a clarifying
Yes, go ahead.
question? So council is saying to just eliminate that whole appeal process piece. So it would go
Correct.
from confidentiality, blah, 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 training and assessment.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and the other things that are in blue, we're recommending not to put in at all, and they're recommending to have those blue
No,
words
that's
in.
fine. I just wanted to make sure I
So here would
was-
be no, like, it would the appeal process that's in green, and that section would be totally just
delete.
deleted.
Got it. Thank you.
And let me find it, I'm almost there. Sorry.
Well, while William is looking, could I make maybe?
Yes.
I can speak to the other members of the committee. If that's going to stay in the appeal process, there's so little to it. Maybe you want the superintendent to develop an appeal process and publish it, or submit it to the school committee, and it'll be, it is, there's much more detail about everything else
Right.
than this. So I think if you're gonna have it, at least say, develop it and then do what with it? Put it in the bullying implementation plan, or give it to the school committee, or what? So everybody knows what it is, or hand it to families. What are you gonna do with this appeal process once it's developed?
Doug?
So
Yeah.
just one thing I'd offer,
Yeah.
if that section is this, persists through into the final version, is that you indicate a window of time in much the same way. Because otherwise, if you don't have a frame in that, a year from now, someone goes, I'm gonna appeal that, from June of 2023
Right.
or whatever. So I think that might be worthwhile to add sometime. Usually it's a 5 or 10 school day period, something like that. I just pick something reasonable, but I would suggest putting a time frame in that if you keep that appeal process in place.
Bridget?
I would just say that I really like the idea of an appeal process. I think it gives the superintendent early eyes on anything that might be really tense or high conflict, and then that it also could be a source of data, like how many people have appealed it, because I think how many people are feeling satisfied with the outcome is an indication of how well a policy is working or not as well.
Irv?
Did Mark weigh in on all of this? And if he did he give any comments to any of these sections? What did he do? What did he just
So
say?
he edited it, and we took the edits under consideration, and the only ones we did not agree with and take totally for their word were the things that are highlighted in blue.
Or the blue things?
All right.
So everything else has been approved or,
Resolved.
but, yeah, given the okay, with everything else. And I still can't,
Yeah, I'm looking for that document too.
sorry. I'm trying to find the one with the notes on it, so I apologize.
Do you have a date for when?
I have it here, but it doesn't have I have to, it has to be in a different format, so it shows the notes.
Yeah.
And not just the red lines and,
Did you put comments in the document?
yeah, it was like on the Google Drive with comments. So I'm trying to see, this is getting formatted.
Are there,
You could come back with that answer.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes, we can.
yeah.
And I thought I had it highlighted here, and now it's opening up in a Word doc and not in the Google Drive, and so it shows the notes differently. And it's harder to see the notes on this particular drive that it's opening up on, and I don't know why it's doing that.
Okay.
we'll have a second read of this, which also, if we go to a third read, that's also fine.
Okay.
So there's no law that says it has to be done at second read, or it is null and void.
Or the first read.
So,
And we might also want to check in, and the policy team may want to check in with the new superintendent too, since that directly is something that is directed at them to
Yep.
do, and get their opinion on it also. Are there any other questions?
I would just add about the appeals process, again, if it stays, that you say who is going to develop, will be implemented. It first has to be developed. So who has the responsibility for developing it?
I don't know that policies include who develops plans for those things. So,
Okay.
right, because the policy, in theory, exists far longer than any of the people that are particularly working on it right now. And that also that process would be, not necessarily something that is part of this, right? That's part of the procedures piece, so.
Okay.
Right, any further questions on JICFB before we move to JICFC?
So can I quickly go back?
Yeah,
She found the
definitely.
note. The council said I would not include an appeal process regarding a determination of bullying. If a student is disciplined, they may have appeal rights depending on the action taken. And we were thinking of an appeal if it wasn't bullying, and not necessarily appeal of discipline action.
Maybe you could make that clarification.
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. JICFC.
So this one, Doug, is also, says highlighted.
I was making that guess.
And this one, again, if you pull up the old policy, the format is very, very different. And so I teased out the information that is different. So everything in this one was approved by legal. Or we did edits and then it was approved. Everything went to legal twice. Both of them have gone through legal 2 times now. So the red highlights are things that we took away that are currently in the policy. The green are the new additions. I would say one of the bigger ones is at the very top. Currently it says student-to-student harassment, and our new policy is student harassment of students. So it incorporates employees, vendors, and other third parties, where previously the harassment policy was only student-to-student.
Can I ask a question? So the second line that's highlighted in red, the policy shall be in effect while students blah, 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 blah. So we don't have like oversight when there are students that are far away and together, right? Or any version of those, right? Students, vendors, third parties. So how does that come back to us if people are being harassed outside of places where we have jurisdiction, right? So like if two kids go to camp together or happen to be, I don't know, in California at the same time with their own families, how does that come back to us? Right. I'm more thinking about like, well, this happened when we were over there, and now we want you to do something about this activity that happened in California, when we have no say over there. Yeah.
I mean, that's a good question. I think that the place where it happens is less important than the impact to the student. And especially these days with social media, where students are connected to each other when they're not at a school event or in a school building or on a school bus, whatever, like that they're not even in each other's presence, but there's harassment happening over social media. I don't think it even, I think that's the intention is it two students who are both go to the same school and are experiencing, because most likely if harassment's happening at another location, it's probably also happening in school. So I mean, it's a good question. But I actually don't think it matters where it happens. But if it's impacting a student's ability to, if it's causing distress, agitation, embarrassment.
So those, it's about the feelings that happen here. I'm just kind of playing the same, trying to play devil's advocate and make sure we're in, making sure our kids are protected and also staying within, our bounds of
Authority.
school committee.
So, yeah, I mean, if you look at page 2 under student-to-student harassment, if regardless of where it happens or when it happens, if it has the effect on interfering with the student's performance, then I don't think it really matters where it happened. That was at least that was my thinking. It doesn't matter where or when it happens.
Okay. All right. I think it was Sarah and then Deb. Sorry.
Yeah. The way I read it, if a student has a weekend job and is harassed by his employer, that employer is in violation of this principle. It says other third policies, and if you're removing this red sentence, then as Sarah Beth says, this seems to apply to our harassment of our students by anybody in the world, anywhere in the world.
Okay,
There's no limitation on it.
Yeah,
So
this
just
is,
put
this
the
is for
red back.
Vendors, this is for the vendors of the school.
Or other third parties.
We understand. We'll take that
Okay.
input. Thank you.
Okay.
Sarah, I think it was Deb.
Maybe I'm reading too much into this part of it, but both the employee-to-student harassment and the student-to-student harassment have contexts. So at the end of both of them, it says the ways in which the behavior is impacting the student's experiences, but that's still not resolving the issue, I'm guessing. Such conduct has the effect of unreasonably interfering with a student's performance or emotional well-being or creating an intimidating or hostile learning environment. Is that still not hitting the nail on the head? Yes, okay.
Yeah, it was more just a matter of the same kind of thinking about it, making sure it's not that I don't want kids to be protected from this, right?
No,
it's just
yeah.
more about making sure we've stayed in our.
This policy, I
Little
think, is
box.
confusing with the red and the green. I think it reads better in the unhighlighted version. It flows better. Because like I said, the formats are very different. So the trying to put in the red
Yeah.
where it makes sense in this new
Yeah.
format gets a little confusing.
Sarah?
Yeah, I'm thinking about some of things that go on in some other schools in other parts of the country, and how policies can be used in ways that maybe are not intended, at least not in this district. employee to student harassment, anything that distresses, agitates, or disturbs a student. All right. When I was in high school, my teacher showed us Night and Fog, which is when I learned about the Holocaust. And I left the classroom and cried for an hour. I was distressed. I was upset. I was troubled. Was that shouldn't have happened to me? I mean, kids are going to learn things that are troubling. A lot of our history is troubling. And unless students are given an opportunity to opt out of the class, then they have to be in the class, and they may well be upset. So I think this is too vague. If you mean things that are not connected to curriculum, then please say that.
Jennifer?
You did say that legal counsel approved all these changes, right?
Correct, yeah, twice.
But so we will still take all input into consideration.
May I go on?
Bridget and
Oh, sorry.
It's fine. I have a couple small things. Harassment prohibited by the district includes on the basis and then bullet points. I wonder, under children, do you mean students who have children?
Yeah, I wondered about
Right? So I'm just thinking maybe language, like you could say parental status or something like that, because they're all children, right?
Do you want to speak to this? 'Cause we had a long discussion of the bullet list and where it was derived from and where it came from. And
Yeah, I think the intention is presence of children, like if you have children. But I think that was,
we also
Did
went
we-
through several different,
yeah,
we had a whole graph of
we had a spreadsheet.
the
you know,
different
it was-
protected classes
Yeah.
in the federal government, Massachusetts, all these different things. And so we incorporated all of them. And one of them was children.
Wasn't that MGL?
I think so.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, do you
But it
want to pull up
didn't
your
specific-
spreadsheet?
No, that's okay. It didn't, MGL has a list of categories that it's illegal to discriminate against, and one of them, it's literally just children. It doesn't say presence of children, whatever. But that wasn't specifically targeted to students. It was like a general, you can't discriminate against someone for this, so, or harass. This is a protected class when it comes to harassment. So, yeah, we could think of a way of wording that better.
And
Just
then-
that what is meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was puzzled.
And one more small thing, and then just one larger sort of point. The small thing is that under harassment on page 2, physical harassment was pulled out. And I feel like, considering more, I think physical should be in there as well. That's something that can often be an issue. And the very last thing I would say is, there's been a lot of work in schools, and things that happen outside of school can definitely be considered harassment or bullying, like that's definitely legally sound. So I think that I'm not concerned as much about that part, but I do concur with Sarah on thinking about how to word it so that it couldn't be that somebody who was, having a snowflake moment wasn't like whatever, just to use the sort of like vernacular, wasn't able to come to the school and be like, oh, I'm being harassed as well. So just making sure it's tight.
Anna, and then Sarah.
So under employee to student harassment, it says very generally embarrasses, distresses, agitates, disturbs. When? And then it has submission to such conduct is made either explicitly, or submission or rejection of such conduct is used as the basis for the decisions affecting the student. So it has to both embarrass, distress, agitate, disturb, or trouble the student, and make those requirements as well. So I think it is somewhat limited in its scope as to, like, yes, it has to do more than just distress the student. It has to be sort of the action has to be a term or condition of something else.
Well, but my example was if you're not allowed to leave, to opt out of a class where you are hearing you are required to listen or learn or watch something that is highly distressing to you, then the teacher has harassed you
according to this policy. But could I go on, because I had another
Sure.
point? Thank you. So similarly about the student-to-student harassment, I think it's too, not vague, but casts too wide a net, because if a student voices an opinion in class that is hurtful or embarrassing or troubling to another student, I mean, then that student is harassing the other student. I mean, I think we had things like this past year about the Israel-Palestine war. You know, if one student, well, you can imagine the opinions that could be voiced in a class, maybe with argument, not just, you know, to be mean, but that would be very troubling to another.
So a couple of things. One is, for the second read, maybe people could look at this and see if there's anything they want us to, that's pink, that want us to leave in, and if not, that'll tighten up the process of coming back and being able to present and understand the second read from a more fluid way. So I would ask you to look at that. Number two, we are opt-out families. We have opted out of movies and things, and teachers, in my experience, are well prepared to provide the same information in not as triggering a way. So I think that's something that our educators are capable of doing and being sensitized to. And the third one is, I do think that in these very volatile situations, having a policy that examines situations and determines whether or not it was deliberate, if lines were crossed, would be important for our district to have.
Earth?
Now, I'm assuming that somewhere there's a definition of bullying, because
Yes, in the other document.
right, because that would guide some of the questions Sarah's raising. Because if the definition of bullying includes consistent behavior, then a one-time thing is a one-off. It has to, in other words, I haven't
Yeah,
read.
this one's on harassment though.
Yeah, even in terms of harassment, it has to be something that doesn't just take place one time. It was inadvertent, but it would seem to be, there has to be a definition that guides this. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Any further comments on JICFC Read 1?
Can I ask, did Doug has any comments on it through his lens? Just out of curiosity.
No, I think that, I think the some of the same points that you guys brought up, but just for clarification on some stuff, at the beginning you have that, vendors or third parties, and then in the section you have student to student, and you have employee to student. So the intention there, I think, with the vendor and third party is adults interacting with students in the school environment. So some tightening of that language, I think, is really helpful, perhaps, because somebody could get harassed, downtown, and it has an impact on the kid, and we're definitely going to take, and recognize that and do things, and we have no repercussions with that person who, is out there. And I think, that question of repetitive behavior is a tricky one, and that's both in the legal definitions of these things as well. It's like, how do we articulate that as a part of this, and in what ways, and that's true for bullying as well as this. I mean, we've ask our own representatives to our state representatives to kind of ask that question and to pose that for DESI to do for us, as well as to say, hey, can you frame this concept of repetitive behavior appropriately for us? Because I think it's, a lot of districts struggle with how to navigate that, and I think it can be a very critical component. And there are times, when a single event is so profound, and it may be that we just don't define it as bullying, or we don't define it as harassment. However, that doesn't mean we don't take action And that's the other piece, I think, for folks to kind of keep in mind too, is that, there's these definitional aspects that we're trying to frame, and when it comes down to sort of the brass tacks, what we're looking for is behaviors that are better and helpful and constructive for students to be able to come to school and learn. So those labels and definitions are really critically important, and if something isn't within that construct, it still doesn't mean it doesn't have consequence, both in a negative way for those that are experiencing it, but then also consequence from the standpoint of actionable steps that staff are taking with those students to modify behaviors and have better relationships and et cetera. But otherwise, I think the comments others have made kind of, sort of frame the questions to tighten what's there.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm sorry, could I
Sarah?
add just one brief thing? The second page, where it says retaliation against a student because a student, see that? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the final version, not the, yes, it's in green, between the red, retaliation, see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder if you would consider adding, because a student, parent, or guardian, or staff has filed a complaint, all right?
Thank
Or,
you.
I mean, or a retaliation against anybody. Anyway,
Yeah.
might want to expand that a little bit.
Thanks.
All right. You're up, Sarah.
Yeah, my computer just shut down. Do I adjourn the Amherst School Committee? Okay. I move to adjourn the Amherst School Committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, raise your hands. 5-0, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. So, our first region only is I move to enter executive session in accordance with Open Meeting Law MGLC 30A, Section 21A, pursuant to Purpose 2, to conduct collective bargaining sessions with the UFCW with the intent to return to open session.
Second.
All right. Tillman's here. Okay.
Roll call vote, yeah?
Yep. So, I didn't write my list. William,
Aye. Yes, whatever.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Irv,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Tillman.
Yes, you can send me a link.
Okay. And Sarah Beth, yes, we are in executive session. And we will return.
I will need to.
Is it possible for us to stay here and stop the live stream and lock the door or whatever, and so that Tillman can stay? So that we don't have to do a whole other...
All right, so I will move to approve the memorandum of agreement between the Amherst Pelham Regional School Committees and UFCW Local 1459 dated June 4, 2024, and also the 2024 to 2027 contract with UFCW Local 1459, consisting of the current 2020 to 2024 contract as modified by said MOA.
I second.
Okay. Roll call vote. William?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Bridget?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Tillman?
Yes.
And Sarah Beth, yes. So that is great. 8. Perfect. Okay. So I also just want to say thank you to everyone who worked on the contracts. They can be hard and long, and I very much appreciate all of the negotiation parties and the union itself. No.
Just talking about approval of minutes.
Okay, so next up is approval of minutes.
So I spoke with Ms. Westmoreland, and she wanted me to assure everyone that before her retirement, she will have all of the minutes, any outstanding minutes, many of them are in place, but not every single one, and she will make sure that the outstanding minutes are available for your review and approval. So never fear, they're on their way.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay. Chair's update. I already said my piece. So still, thank you very much to Doug and Debbie. Any school committee announcements? Jennifer?
I'm the school committee rep on the AFSCME bargaining team, and negotiations are still underway and still progressing, and we're meeting regularly, and we're working collaboratively with the AFSCME union. I'll let you know how it goes.
Excellent. Any other school committee announcements? Okay. Public comment.
Yeah. So there are a couple of folks from, that are on the outside that have joined the meeting besides our members, and that's, I shared the link with a couple of folks that are here. You'll notice Bob Parent, who's a staff at Town Hall. He's helping us with, capital projects. And then Sam McLeod has raised his hand there, is the chair of the Amherst Community Preservation Act Committee. And so I think Sam might want to comment in relation to the topic a little further down. So you can either take it under public comment, or you could wait and ask him to provide comment during the discussion. It's up to you which way you want to handle it, but that's why.
I'd be glad to make a comment now, if you can hear me.
We can. Sure. If it's public comment. Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, thank you all for all your extensive hard work. I understand that it's quite a large task, and I'm glad that you volunteered and are doing this for the community. I wanted to make a comment regarding the CPA meeting based upon the referral through the town council that originated with the RSC to rescind the motions, some of the restrictions affiliated with the high school track and field from June of 2022. I'm making this comment because I'm not sure if all the members were cognizant of the motion that was made. I know some were in the finance committee meeting, but I know there are 9 committee members here. So I wanted to call the committee members' attention to the motion that the CPA passed regarding the rescission of the restriction of the north-south orientation, and it read as follows. The motion to rescind is to rescind the restriction of the north-south orientation with the strong recommendation to pursue the north-south option, and to encourage the town, and in this case the RSC, to return to CPAC, Community Preservation Act Committee, for additional funds to meet that north-south objective as soon as possible, as needed. So that is the motion that passed through the CPA committee based upon the meeting that I called in quick fashion at the request of the town council via the RSC. The other comment I wanted to make that there's the capacity, I as chair would be willing to call a meeting in short order for an urgent matter off cycle if there is a time is of the essence, which may be the case in this. So I wanted the committee members who may not have attended the Finance Committee meeting to be aware of that. I'd be glad if there's a need for me to say anything further. I think that the presenters and the school committee members are fully cognizant of the details. So thank you all so much for your work, and our committee made that vote in recognition of the fact that the pending decision is a 40 to 50 year permanent outcome. And that's why we phrased that motion as is. So thank you very much. And thank you, Doug, for calling on me.
Thank you. Okay. We have 2 voicemails. Which I will try.
Hi, this is Will Roundy, the ARHS World Languages Department Head. I'm calling in from the Massachusetts Foreign Language Association Proficiency Academy, sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, a 3-day workshop I'm attending along with Olivia Blaze, the ARMS World Language Curriculum Leader. This professional development is for the implementation of the new World Language Proficiency Standards. I would attend the school committee meeting in person tonight if I could, but the Proficiency Academy runs into the evening. I was told by the expert facilitators here that we district language leaders need to communicate to students, parents, admin, and other stakeholders what the proficiency targets are and how we get there. Our district conversation on lost class time has been focused on language levels, which are arbitrary cutoffs. What really matters is not class titles, but the amount of time spent on learning and students' projected proficiency levels. So why don't we take a look and see if we're following the recommendations of statewide language agencies. The DESE and MAFLA recommendation for our K-12 language programs is that they should get students through the actual advanced low level of proficiency by graduation. That's advanced low. This takes 998 hours for languages like French and Spanish, more for languages like Mandarin. So is our district meeting this guidance? Prior to the proposed ARMS cut and the ARHS block schedule in grades 7 through 12, a student could take a grand total of 778 classroom hours. They achieved intermediate high proficiency at 713 hours, 1 level below the state target. The target advanced low proficiency is at 998 hours, so we were only 285 hours short at that time. Our current proposed curriculum for next year offers a student in grades 7 through 12 a grand total of 591 classroom hours, a 24% reduction compared to our old curriculum. Students achieve intermediate mid-proficiency at 570 hours, 2 levels below the state target. This is 407 hours short of the target of advanced low proficiency, giving students about 60% of the class time they should have access to. Put another way, the current proposed schedule, by getting us to intermediate mid-proficiency, will allow students to only earn functional fluency, the lowest level of the 3 levels of the scale of biliteracy, even if they take every single class we offer. The Proficiency Academy also states that we need to get kids out of the novice level as fast as possible. This is important for students' linguistic competence and for their ability to access a wider, more interesting range of curricular content. For this reason, and for brain development, we need the restoration of class time at ARMS, not ARHS. The proposed schedule for next year gives our ARMS language students nearly half of the class time of all the other core academic classes. And when the students are seniors, they will be hundreds of hours and 2 proficiency levels below the state's target. It's not enough. The students know it, the teachers know it, the community knows it, the school committee knows it, and the state knows it. Let's reinvest any money we get from the town back into our language programming. Thank you very much.
We have one more message.
Hi, this is Olivia Blaze. I work at Amherst Regional School. I'm the Latin teacher at the middle school and also the curriculum leader of world languages. I'm calling because now I believe we have a 6% approval on the budget increase. It's been kind of hard to find that information. And I'd just like to advocate one more time that the cut not be made to world languages at the middle school This is something that our community was overwhelmingly against, as was the school committee, and it feels like now that we got some of the budget, doesn't it make sense that some of that money be allocated to what the community so did not want to lose? I'm at Mathless Proficiency Academy at the moment. This is actually my lunch break, so sorry if these comments aren't very well considered, but they're kind of off the cuff. But, you know, I'm at this conference and we're talking so much about how Massachusetts is putting more emphasis on proficiency and world language education. And that is not something I am seeing in our schools, unfortunately. Specifically, we should be moving students out of novice levels as quickly as possible. If we make this change to every other day, they're going to be sitting for 2, maybe 3 years at the novice level. This is not encouraging. This is not effective instruction of a world language. We can say we're teaching languages on paper, but we're not doing so in any sort of effective way in this model. Finally, on a logistical level, I'd like to point out that we as staff in our school, me as curriculum leader, we've heard absolutely nothing about this. We only knew that the cut was still planning to go ahead based on interim superintendent Slaughter's comments to the school committee's questions at a recent meeting. We've left for the summer with no instruction, no planning time to implement these changes, no even schedule for what is a massive change to how we present languages. Kind of with all of that, I really ask you to advocate that this not be done in whatever ability you have to do so. Thank you so much for listening and for all that you do for our schools and communities. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Okay. So next up is the regional summative evaluation review. Is attached. I'll just read the very beginning part. The Amherst Pelham Regional School Committee presents Dr. Slaughter with this summative evaluation of his performance as interim superintendent of the 23-24 school year. Evaluations completed by committee members are mostly supportive of the work towards the goals set at the beginning of the 2023-2024 school year. His overall performance was rated needs improvement below the requirements of a standard or overall, but is not considered to be unsatisfactory at this time. Improvement is necessary and expected. Or proficient, fully satisfactory. This is a rigorous expected level of performance with one member rating his overall performance as exemplary. Practicing significantly exceeds proficient and could serve as a model of practice regionally or statewide. The ratings for members on the established goals ranged from some progress to exceeded, with the majority of the ratings in significant progress and met categories. With respect and appreciation for his daily commitment to students of our district, and generally evaluations from the committee members recognize the challenging circumstances that Dr. Slaughter started his tenure with as interim superintendent of the Amherst Pelham Regional School District, and reflect his efforts towards meeting the goals established at the beginning of the school year. And I think that's all I'm going to read through. Is there anyone that would like to make additional comments? Anna?
So I would like to say that I recognize the very challenging environment that Doug stepped into. I think there were a lot of additional challenges that were faced beyond just being an interim superintendent in a very challenging role. There were a lot of unfilled positions. There were a lot of competing priorities and pressures, additional projects that just really split his time among a whole bunch of different things. And so I do recognize that this was challenging, and I think even a seasoned superintendent would have had challenges meeting all of the goals that we established for him and meeting all of the standards. And so I just want to recognize that we do understand all of these competing issues, and we really appreciate him stepping into this role and doing everything that he could to keep everything afloat and balanced.
Thank you. Tillman?
I just wanted to ask if you can read the last sentence of the first page of the memo also.
The committee thanks Dr. Slaughter for his continued dedication to our district for all of his hard work supporting students, educators, and community. Jennifer?
I just have a question for you, Sarah Bess, about the report.
Yep.
On the last page, the appendix, where it's evaluator summary comments, are the lines meant to be lines between individual comments?
Yes.
Because could you just double check to make sure that the lines, because there are some, I think, paragraphs or in between lines where there's multiple people's comments in one.
I think I had, yep, I will fix that.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
I had a weird Google issue where like somehow it reverted back to some old draft. I will fix it and
Great.
make sure everybody's comments are broken
Separated.
up
Great, thank you.
appropriately. I apologize.
No problem, thanks.
Deb?
And one of the things that has been pointed out to me by some more seasoned former school committee members is the time-consuming nature of litigation. So I'd just like to put that out there as one of the many directions that our interim superintendent had to divide his time and attention and focus.
Thank you. Sarah?
And I want to recognize that this committee's decisions around the budget meant that Doug and the business office had to devote a lot more time, a lot more meetings, a lot more work to the budget this year. So time that in normal years maybe would have gone to other efforts. So thank you.
All right. Any further comments? Okay.
If I could.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I just want to, and I should have said this in the other committees that did this, but, you know, I'm appreciative of getting this feedback, and I think it's helpful for me, and I've said this before, I think it's helpful for me, and I think it's also helpful for us as a district to think on and reflect on the comments that you make and the things you think went well or didn't go well, because I think that's, you know, can be a little bit of a guiding document for Dr. Herman as she starts her work next Monday. And you know, gives a sense of, you know, your perspectives on what you care about and what you think happened or didn't happen, regardless of circumstance. It's like these things did or didn't happen, and maybe they should have happened or needed to happen or need to be continued to be worked on, that sort of thing. That's very rich and powerful feedback for us to lean into and understand the circumstances and what's next for us. So thank you for that, and I appreciate you guys taking the time. I've done these kind of things for executives before. They're not easy to do. Even just the simple rating part, separate from comments, is difficult, you know, to do. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the efforts of compiling them. That's not easy either. So thank you all.
Okay. So I'll fix the quotes at the end. Do we want to vote on it? To be amended? Do we want to wait?
Can I have
Yes,
just one question?
absolutely.
In the summary of ratings on standards, like standard 1 has many dots,
Ooh, they're 10.
and standards 2, 3, and 4 only have 5.
Let's not vote on this.
Okay.
I will fix it.
Yeah,
This is terrible.
It was tricky. It was tricky.
It's a lot of like,
Yeah.
The spreadsheet was very big. It was hard to.
I was trying to do it all on this one tiny screen. I apologize. I'm very sorry, Doug, and everybody else.
And some of the dots aren't exactly circles. I'll just have you know.
Oh my God!
No,
Yeah, you call
they're
it.
a little lopsided. I just want you to know. I'm just saying.
Thanks, guys.
No, I'm just kidding.
Bridget?
There might be some comments missing as well. I don't know if
Yeah.
you were trying to put all in or just
I
a
just
sample.
added they were not all of the comments that were
Okay,
written. It
great.
was just the summative comments.
All right, great.
I want to ask them because I put everything in. Of course, it was a smaller number of people commenting. But does the superintendent have access to the spreadsheet?
And I think
I didn't know if he would otherwise see them if I didn't put them in.
I believe the individual evaluations go to the superintendent, is my recollection, but I'm like 75% on that.
I haven't looked yet, so I don't know either. But
Okay,
Ask Debbie before she leaves.
panic. Okay,
So you need to put this on the first agenda for the
I guess
first meeting?
so, yeah. I feel a little bad because Doug won't be our superintendent
that's okay.
there. Okay. All right,
You can give me the unapproved but updated version probably sooner.
I can
I'll share with
probably
you,
do that
super.
tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so policy subcommittee update we did earlier.
Yeah.
And then, so next up is the Title IX Investigative Reports Subcommittee updates.
So we were just bringing a recommendation forward. So just kind of wanted to highlight that. There is a 2-minute video. I don't know if we have time to watch that. I'll pass it off to Sarah Bess if she thinks we have time to watch it or not.
I didn't watch it previously. Is it a good explanation?
It
of
is,
Okay,
yeah.
then sure. If we can make that happen.
What's the?
If it works, if not, it's okay.
Anyway, it's not actually a link. This would be the link. I'll share this tab instead.
Movie, honestly, winning homecoming queen and just like having the whole crowd just go wild. I didn't really know what was going on in the moment because I didn't even have my phone when people were spreading these hateful messages online. I went into the car and I just cried.
Carry you around, my clothes spilling on the ground. The kids I went to school with, they would call me slurs. We can't, ignore what people say about us. We're human beings.
So when I came out to my mom, she was ultimately wanting me to wait until the end of high school because of my safety, because she was afraid. I said that I cannot wait any longer to express myself. I'm going to continue living my life as a basically cardboard cutout. I'm going to continue living my life in just a monotonous cycle that really doesn't mean anything to me if I don't transition.
Our overall goal of the program is to create environments where all LGBTQ+ kids and their families thrive. We knew that this data-driven, outcomes-based program that was so successful in PK5 would certainly be beneficial to move into middle school and high schools where it's critically needed.
I'm thrilled that the program is extending to secondary schools because a lot of our students at the secondary level are really grappling with different aspects of their identity. If students feel safe and welcome and that they belong and they're less busy trying to create safety for themselves, they're actually able to engage with content, to ask questions, to wonder, think, and create.
Doesn't make a sound. The quiet's way too loud. My baggage just always weighs me down. I couldn't have done it without you. I couldn't have done it without your love. So what if I fall and hit the ground?
So in short, the Crocker Farm Preschool, or what's the actual title, Doug? Of the
It's the Amherst Early Education Center.
Okay.
EEC.
Just did this program over 3 years, and they were accredited with being, they got the seal of being a welcoming school. If you go through the training modules, and you can go through on your own time on the annual reports, we're essentially recommending that the middle school and high school implement this program. It is a 3-year commitment with one PD, I guess it's 1 to 2 professional development modules per year. There is a cost to it. There's also on the menu of services, it kind of breaks down somewhat what the cost would be. It is a program that would, it's basically an anti-bullying program that would address some of the LGBTQ issues. It would address some neurodivergent issues. It kind of does it would address some of the race issues. It's not necessarily just LGBTQ focused. It's more bullying overall focused. And I think it would be a program that our district really could benefit from. And so we wanted to kind of push this forward and see if the region would be willing to also push this forward as a recommendation for the new superintendent to see about implementing. They're also willing to come do a presentation for us. We didn't have time for a whole presentation tonight, so you can dive through the information yourself, and if you wanted a presentation, we could arrange that at a different time.
Yep. Sarah?
So, thank you for starting with the Early Education Center, because I wondered if it was the same program, which was great. But I'm unclear about what our role is in this. I mean, are you asking or suggesting that we would recommend to Dr. Herman that she consider implementing this? I mean, I don't know how directive we can be, or you're suggesting we be. We can't obviously appropriate the money to do it.
So this is a recommendation from the Title IX Reports Investigation Subcommittee, and we were tasked with making recommendations to the district of what could best practices could be changed to help protect kids in our district. And this is something that we feel very strongly about that could make a huge difference in our district, and would also make amends to the community and show them how we're going to get in front of this, and we're determined to make our school a welcoming school.
Bridget?
I wanted to talk just for a minute to that presentation, because we did get the full presentation. I think one thing that was really powerful was the intersectional approach that they took. Another thing is when they talk about the evidence-based outcomes, that one of them that's really significant is on suicidality, which is, just a huge problem with teens in general, but especially with this cohort, or, with LGBTQ plus youth. So they said they'd be willing to work with us on cost. And one thing I wanted to note is that our committee voted unanimously to recommend that to the superintendent that the district implement the welcoming schools, at least in the middle school to start, and to move on to the high school. I think we feel really strongly about it, and I feel like probably independently, if there's a cost barrier, we know there's a cost barrier, right? That that fundraising efforts in the community would be forthcoming.
Right. That's what I was going to say too. We discussed, not that we would have the ability to fundraise, but we discussed that we could set up an entity, someone in the community could set up an entity to fundraise for this. It's probably going to be 30-ish thousand cost, anywhere from 20 to 30,000. And HRC did say they would work with us on that cost. There is also would be a cost possibly of the training and the hours of staff. So that we would need a commitment from the superintendent to help funnel those trainings into hours that are already paid for and through other PD training, if that makes sense. It's multi-stepped. Go ahead.
Remind me of the Boston connection. So there was, when we did the presentation, we talked with the presenter whose names I've forgotten, and they mentioned that
They were from the Boston area, and they also her partner went to UMass, and so they're connected.
right, but they said there was a facilitator in Boston.
That was at the presentation who did the awarding of the seal at
Right.
Crocker.
And that person was particularly well matched for our needs, it seemed like, given that initial conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, they came and they gave a whole presentation. I'm trying to think of what else we could add. And I'm perplexed. next. I apologize.
Can I guess I just want to jump in and say, I also felt like having met over the course of the, last 6 months, having discussed these, having, just mulled over these issues and how we move forward in a positive way, this really felt like it checked those boxes, having a professional structure, facilitators who can engage in age-appropriate curriculum to help our educators create the environment that we all know we value and are looking to create or reinforce or whatever it is that, or just put it forward as these are our values. It fulfilled all of those areas that we were looking to.
Yeah, and if you look at the training modules that are highlighted on one of the links, it's 5 training modules, and then once the staff goes through those training modules, then they spend the next 6 months of implementing it. And there's coaching involved on the side to make sure they're implementing it. They're going to look at books, look at policy, look at classroom structure. I mean, it's a really in-depth program.
Bridget?
One piece I'd like to say is the $30,000 cost even is over 3 years, so it doesn't hit each budget year all at once. And I feel like we did walk out of the committee, Irv was there as well, with the intent to ask this committee, or to make a motion, which any of us could do, I guess, to ask this committee to recommend the implementation of the Welcoming Schools curriculum at ARPS to the superintendent. So,
Are you making that motion?
should I make it? Okay, I will make that motion that, that the regional school committee recommend the implementation of the Welcoming Schools curriculum at ARPS in the, in the coming period, I guess. I don't know exactly.
Oh.
Clarifying question?
Was there
Tillman?
a second first?
Second.
Perfect. All right, Tillman?
I'm a little concerned about recommending. I feel that it's not our position to recommend a specific, curriculum material. I think we could recommend that the superintendent consider this material, but I'm a little uncomfortable with recommending.
Thank you. Deb?
So we discussed, just to be clear, 7 through 12.
Thank you. Yeah, all right, I said ARPS, which I
Yeah.
think is just that, right?
Yeah.
Regional.
Yeah.
Jennifer?
Okay, I have a few questions. Remind me who's on this subcommittee?
It is myself, it is Bridget, it is Deb, and it is Irv.
Okay. And my recollection of creating the subcommittee was the subcommittee's charge was to review the Title IX investigation and other reports and make recommendations on actions the school committee could take. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
So, so just to clarify, did you all say that your subcommittee voted to recommend this to the superintendent?
No.
Or that you voted to recommend it to the school committee?
To recommend it to the school committee to recommend to
the superintendent.
Yes. Yes.
So, I see Tillman's point, but I also, it's not the school committee's purview to, instruct the superintendent to implement anything of this nature. But I think recommend implementing. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fine line between. I think what Tillman's saying is he prefer it to be recommend consider as opposed to recommend implementing. I think there's I don't. So anyway, I'm sorry if thinking out loud as I'm speaking. So I think I'm okay with this is a non-binding recommendation to the superintendent to implement this, and the superintendent can take that recommendation for however she wants. So.
Bridget? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
All that is to say, I'm in favor of the motion. Thank you.
Bridget?
I just wanted to say when we began the committee, we looked at the Title IX reports and then we made three categories that fell within the school committee's purview, and one of them was curriculum, and so we've done some looking into the curriculum that's available, and it feels like that the curriculum that's currently available, in turn, there's some great curriculum actually, but it's mainly in English and social studies, and it's not a school-wide culture or climate type of approach, and we felt like this would fill the gap in the curriculum. Curriculum is, you know, something the school committee has impact on, and so that's why we, the paths that we're following were within those overarching guidelines of what's within our purview.
Okay.
And I guess I would also add, we did, like I said, on the fundraising aspect, we did discuss in depth that I wouldn't want this to be a cost that the district would have to take on, given we have budget cuts. And so I would, as recommending to implement this, I would also recommend to do fundraising in the community to pay for this.
Sarah?
I have no quarrel with the content or the goals of this, but maybe like Tillman, I feel this is maybe heavy-handed. I mean, we have a curriculum director, and we have, I assume, I guess I don't know, that there will be training for staff again in this summer around our LGBTQ policies, maybe not. So I feel like there are some efforts ongoing, and I'm happy to bring it to the superintendent's attention, bring it to the curriculum director, I forget Mary's title.
Mary Kyle.
You know, because who knows what else they've looked at. It's really, I mean, I get it. It sounds great. I've already looked at what you have posted. But there are also larger issues of fitting this in with all the other curricular. I mean, I feel like it's, I would rather draw it to her attention or ask her to consider whether it can be incorporated into other efforts to address. Yeah.
I was going to say, Crocker Farm was the first in the U.S. It was the first. It was preschool, whatever the early childhood. It was the first one. It was called preschool. It was the first one in the nation to ever receive this seal. It was the 35th school in the nation to receive this seal. I think she said that there was no district that has received it yet. I think it'd be very powerful for us to be able to say our district received this, and we're 36 and 37 of schools that are welcoming schools here in America. And I think that's in our preview to make sure that we have the safety of our kids and that we push a welcoming school.
Tillman?
I completely agree with William that this would be great if we could be that, but I think it's not in the purview of the school committee to recommend particular curriculum. I'm really worried about this being a slippery slope where we introduce an opinion from, our non-educator perspective. I'm not willing to go past recommending considerations. If we don't rephrase this to soften the language, I will vote against it.
Deb?
I hear all of the concerns, and I appreciate them, and I would like to think about it. But I would also like to put forward that this is a professional development opportunity. I understand the degree in which that can be perceived as overstepping. I had a thought, but we spent a lot of time talking about our charge and what to do with it, what our responsibility was, having done the analysis. And we came to believe that best practices, recommending best practices to this committee, was what we would do based on what we saw from the reports. there was some tension within the committee about what the report should be and whether or not it should be coarsely stated, a calling out or a calling in. And we went with a calling in. We didn't think it was productive to, in the end, to identify roles or individuals or areas in which the system broke down. So we were looking for ways in which we could use our charge to recommend to this committee ways in which we could see it being strengthened and filled in ways that perhaps were not available. So I get it, and I hear you guys, but this seemed to be what worked best for us, given the work that we were looking at.
Anna?
So I think that this is a little different than a curriculum recommendation. This is not necessarily recommending a curriculum that the superintendent should embrace, but a seal that we are trying to achieve. And the seal that suggests that we are a welcoming community and supportive is a little bit different than saying we should implement this new curriculum that does X, Y, and Z. So we're not asking Mary Kiley to accept a new curriculum. We're recommending to the superintendent that this seal of being a welcoming school is something that our district is interested in and thinks would be beneficial and a good statement to the community. And so, yes, that seal comes with a curriculum, but it's really about the seal that we're recommending and not necessarily about the curriculum that we're recommending. So I think that to say that we recommend to the superintendent, and we could say consider, or we can say we recommend, but because it is a non-binding recommendation, I don't think it matters whether we're recommending that she consider it or recommending that she implements it, because she can still say, I take your recommendation and I choose not to follow it, and that's okay. And we can still say, we think that this would be beneficial for our district, and she can do with it what she wants to. So I support it.
Bridget?
I think there is the curricular aspect to it, but it's the staff who implement it. And so I just went to double check on the MASC roles and responsibilities, where it breaks down school committee and then superintendent. And under professional development, bullet point number 2 says, provide and encourage resources for professional development that will enable school leaders to have the knowledge and skills required for effective policy leadership for the school system. And I feel like this really falls within that category, I would say. And so if it makes people feel more better about it, maybe we could change the word to encourage, which matches exactly what the role of a school committee should be.
So what would the language?
Sarah?
Oh, where was I? Shoot. Okay, one thought was maybe we should just have this discussion when Dr. Herman is at the table. I mean, maybe she's watching. So I mean, I know you're ready and you've reached this point, but we're also talking about what someone who will be here shortly might do. We could just wait.
So I wrote my name down next. I really love the idea of where this is coming from. I would like to table the motion. I'm not making that motion yet. I'm just talking about my thoughts. And invite them to come do their presentation and then choose to make some motion possibly to Dr. Herman, to the superintendent. So then the full committee has, and how Dr. Herman and the public and more can have more information about this. So, Tillman?
FYI, the presentation was like 20 minutes, 25 minutes long.
We just did not have time
We
to.
didn't have time to.
Tillman?
So, yeah, thanks for the clarification on the roles for the school committee. I reread it now, and I would be okay with moving ahead with something that uses the phrasing along the lines of provide and encourage the resources. So if, we make this resource available, or we vote that it become available, I'm okay with that.
I have full respect for your idea, but one thing that's occurring to me is the timeline, because I think this is something that if we voted now, we could look at being implemented in fall with professional development or getting started, where I think if we wait, at least from what I saw with the LGBTQ stuff last year, there was an August training and a November training in the artifacts, and then so I have some hesitation to waiting, that's all.
Sarah?
Yes, I wonder if Doug knows whether there's training in this general issue, professional development, for the already planned.
So I'd say that that's one of the first conversations I want to have with Dr. Herman. She's starting next Monday. I'm scheduled to be tied up with something else on Monday and Tuesday. So we're scheduled to meet on Wednesday. And I was actually speaking with Debbie Westmoreland today. We're talking about this a little bit, not specifically this topic, but the topic of training and thinking about our administrator training that we're going to do. There's some things we do every year and refresh and revisit some things we're needing to do. That starts in August, and so we've got to get some frame around some of this. So something like this, which would, if you're looking to implement this year, would have to be factored into that. So, in some ways, if you're going to give this recommendation to her, we'll have to have that conversation really next week when she gets here, just to start framing it. Can we logistically sort of start putting pieces together to get going? Because it's got to fit into the context of a bunch of other things, and she's got to, appreciate where we are in those, implementation of other curricular things, other sort of points of focus, that sort of thing, and how we might be able to fit this in, and with the time, and so separate from the dollars, just sort of the time people have, in the calendar that we have to work with. So that's a, sort of logistics piece is going to be a little complicated, and it's not a no, it's just we got to, and I'm happy to bring this to her next week, kind of regardless of what you guys ultimately do tonight. I'll bring this up to her in conversations, just because, partly so that she understands what the preschool did, and the interest you as a committee have relative to this in a broader way. So we can begin strategizing kind of regardless of your actions. We can think about it, how it might be able to be implemented and how quickly, and start to address the questions that come to mind.
Can I follow up? Sorry.
A follow-up?
Yeah, because I asked him about that. So if the decisions about the professional development, all the training, the onboarding that happens in August, if those have to be made starting next week, then asking the superintendent to consider this isn't really giving her a lot of time to consider it. It's yeah, she's got to, that's I don't know. That seems unfair to say. You got to.
If I may.
Yep.
I would just say, we tend to think in terms of school years, and operating, sort of August to early June. And given the length of time that this time horizon that this requires, we may want to be thinking differently about that. So I think I think that's some of it we'd have to sort of dig into, sort of what could be potential implementation strategies. I think it would be difficult to turn around and start as early as August. Administrators, like I said, are meeting early in August to do some of their work. That would be really tricky to meet. And then we have teachers coming in, it's the 22nd of August, and there's most of those time, of that time's already booked, because it's things like safety training in our buildings for fire drills and lockdowns and, I mean, it's the same we do all the time. So there's not a ton of hours available for stuff. And some of that's been budgeted for other things. So I think we can think about what our implementation strategies could look like and how it might be, and it doesn't absolutely have to be perfectly on a school year cycle. So I think we can be creative in thinking about that too. So I think that's part of the nature of the conversation to start.
Deb?
How about, and it's just an idea, we ask her to meet with them or consider meeting with them, having the same presentation.
William?
I think is it call to question? Is that what it's called?
Call the question.
Call the question.
Well,
You wanna talk about it
was it amended? I think Bridget,
Just
No?
change,
Oh.
I just changed the word to encourage instead of recommend. So,
well,
So,
who moved
okay,
it?
so it doesn't matter. So first, you are calling the question. Okay. Therefore, we are now taking a vote on calling the question. So a vote yes means we are all done talking about this, and we will immediately vote on the motion. And a vote no means you want to continue having this discussion. William?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Bridget?
yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Tillman?
No?
And Sarah Beth, yes. Okay, so 7-1, no abstentions. The question has been called, and so now we go to immediate vote on the motion. Can you please read the motion again?
Yeah, the motion is to encourage the superintendent to adopt the Welcoming Schools program and seal, it's called the Seal of Excellence for the ARPS schools, so the regional schools.
Point of order?
Yep.
I mean, that's now another word we didn't talk, to adopt. We had implement, we had consider.
Okay, yep, you're right. The vocabulary implement is fine, so.
So that's the original motion.
Yeah, that's the
Consider,
origin.
implement.
I think we said encourage to implement or encourage to adopt, wherein the first one we said to adopt, so.
Can you say it? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hold on, wait.
Okay.
What you got there?
I'm gonna type really fast so we can have it as words.
So, maybe I'll keep it as simple as possible.
Okay, go.
I move to encourage the superintendent to adopt the Welcoming Schools program and seal of excellence for.
Hold on.
Yep, sorry. Yep.
What
have you
the
got?
superintendent to adopt the
Welcoming
Welcoming
Schools
Schools.
program and seal of excellence.
and seal of excellence.
For the ARPS schools, the regional schools.
Encourage the superintendent to adopt the Welcoming Schools program and seal of excellence for the regional school district. Okay.
Second. Did we
Okay.
do that already?
I think it.
No.
Anna already did. kind
Oh,
of,
yeah,
but-
sorry. Yes.
Yep. So it was originally moved by
And s-
Bridget and
and
originally seconded by Anna. Okay. Now we vote on this motion to encourage the superintendent to adopt the Welcoming Schools program and seal of excellence for the regional school district. William,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Bridget,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Tillman,
Yes.
and Sarah Beth, yes. 8-0-0. Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate you talking slow so I could try and type it out. Get at it. Okay. Fantastic. Moving on to our track and fields design discussion and vote.
So I have a question for Doug before we get too far.
Yep.
Go ahead.
The slide deck that was on the agenda was dated 6/17? Yes.
Yes.
The one that Kevin presented to town council was a variation on that. And Athena asked him to send it to them, and as far as I can tell, it isn't. So I took pictures of his slides, and there's a slight difference in totals.
Well,
Guess I should have brought that up before.
let me check.
It's 70,000 or 75 less. Yeah,
Which one?
the one that I took pictures
The
of.
town council one.
The town council one.
Did you look in their packet?
I did. It was the same one.
I also have a couple questions about numbers.
How about we let
Well, I think
Doug
in the
present,
course of the
and then we'll
conversation,
questions.
it won't really matter.
Okay.
I mean, it does matter.
Okay.
But as far as I think what you need to think about and decide,
Yeah.
I don't think it really matters. So
Okay,
I'll-
good.
I'll frame it that way. It will ultimately matter, for sure. There's no doubt about it.
Okay.
And so I have to say, I'm sorry I didn't get this to you as any earlier today. It's rather wordy, this memo from me. Took a little while to compile, and I had a number of meetings today, so it was not easy to kind of finish this, but I did want to draw your attention to a couple of things. One is the formal actions of the town council took to remove restrictions, some of that based on the recommendations of the Community Preservation Act Committee of the town. I think, I think the CPAC was in as much as they wanted to remove the restrictions and allow for the flexibility, they also really would like to see the north-south orientation. What I said to the town council was that, the conversation we had that I took away was that you guys really want to do that. It's sort of really a question of funding. The councilors, as I note here in the memo, while they didn't take a formal vote, and I'm not sure it'd be unanimous if they had, but, my sense of the group was that, that orientation was preferred, or they were kind of neutral on it, but most of them preferred it. So I think what we did, and this is part of the conversation at the town council, but it's also an idea we've been kind of working on a little bit since then, is, well, are there other ways to approach this and still allow for that option 3C to be explored? And the short story is, yes, there are. So there's some options of what's called, add alternates. So when you do a bidding process, you can have what they call add alternates in that. So when they bid on the when a contractor bids on that request for proposal, they give a price for the base, and then any add alternates they give a price for. When you go to sign the contract, you have to make a decision about which of those add alternates that you're going to accept. And you have to have the funding in hand at that point, either an authorization for debt or actual cash in the bank or whatever. But by having add alternates as an idea, gives us some flexibility to continue to sort of ask people for money, because there's some other folks who want to ask for funding, in particular the Community Preservation Act committees in each of the 4 towns. And I think the other thing, as far as, and we've outlined a few things here, it doesn't cover the full gap in where we are with cash on hand and where we need to be for the project, but it articulates some of the things that we could have as add alternates, and if they don't happen, so if we get to the bidding process and we could, the omission of these things are not catastrophic to the program and to the project. So I think that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. It's like, yes, it would be nice to do all these in one fell swoop, and if we need to stage it a little bit, it's not bad. Most of these are pretty modest things. I think the lighting's the most arduous from an actual construction standpoint. So the idea with that is that it would be a circumstance where we, sort of run the conduit and the wires and set the concrete bases and just not buy the poles and put them up. And so, the poles and lights are the big part of the expense. It's still a fair amount of expense there. There's some other things that we've listed there that are either, things we can wait on or potentially, opt out altogether. We may never do it. Or we may decide we'll do some preparatory work. If we have funding later, we can come back to those. And so these are just some suggestions. One that wasn't in the conversation when the folks at SLR were talking with the town council was the football goalposts. I think given that we're going with a natural surface field, I think just like the ball netting, the safety netting, similarly the goalposts, there's not going to be enough playable hours on a grass field to tolerate that sport as well. So I think it's a reasonable thing to say, all right, well, we'll put in sort of the sleeves for them, but not buy the actual goalposts. That takes a little bit of money off the table, and if we can afford it, then maybe we buy it. We have to prioritize which of these things on this list are possibilities. As Mr. McLeod shared, the CPAC in Amherst is certainly interested and willing to take under consideration another proposal. So that's another opportunity for us to ask the CPA in Amherst for some additional funding to help support this project. In the other three communities, there's sort of two pieces to the puzzle. We have a small amount of design-based money that we asked Pelham for a number of years ago that they awarded us $11,500. We had not had an opportunity to go back to them to ask for any construction money relative to this. And I think for Leverett and Shutesbury, similarly, we haven't gone through that process to completion. So I think we'll go back to all of those and see if they have an appetite for supporting their regional school students that come. And it's a regional resource, so it's also an opportunity for them, to contribute to a regional resource that that they are welcome to use as the general public. It's not like we're checking IDs when people walk on the track. It's not convenient because it's not in their town, and it's not unheard of that if their kids at practice they're walking the track or something of that sort. So I think there's opportunity there. I think I'll quiz. One of the things I'll do in the coming weeks is reach out to the town administrators in those towns and ask them about anything that might be happening off cycle for them as far as CPA, whether there's any consideration of that. It would require them to call a special town meeting. I don't know that would be something. If they're planning one already, it might be an opportunity, and it may be a thing where even if they were calling a fall town meeting, their CPA committee may not be wanting to entertain it out of context and out of cycle. So, we'll ask the question. If they say no, we'll put it in for the regular cycle. If we go in that and we're successful, the money's not available to us until July 1st, 2025. So that would preclude it being a part of a bid with an ad alternate, and we're still queued up to potentially buy some other aspects of this by virtue of another bid process for those additional pieces that weren't in the original. So I think we've got that as an option. Like I said, the CPA in Amherst is interested in sort of entertaining the concept more quickly, and the Amherst Town Council meets regularly so they can take action off cycle if they choose to. And then I think the other thing that I will share that's in this memo is just, and it's sort of just a single line I put in there, but I don't want to completely skip it. I've been hesitant to lean on it very much because we have a capital stabilization fund for the regional district. This is a capital project. It is certainly an appropriate use of those funds for that. Our capital stabilization fund is not that huge, and we have some other big projects that we also want to use some of that funding for. At the same time, it may be, and again, that would be a decision of this committee, is whether to commit some of those resources to help us out. So it could be a circumstance where, if we just had another X dollars, that might be the best project. So I think that, like I say here, although the risk associated with moving forward with the design without full funding for the construction is risky, and I think given that we have a couple of different potential resources to help support, as well as in a short term, as well as a longer term, as well as, refinements or add alternates we can consider as part of the design process. I think, the larger construct of thinking about creating a north-south oriented track is one we can explicitly consider in a direction we can go. It may require a bit of a phased approach to it. But we want to give that direction to our folks at SLR so that they can get the designing done, the permitting done, and all of that, so we can go into a bid process in the late fall. So I think, for all those words, the short story is, I think we can do 3C, and I would recommend that I think you're taking formal action, we were talking earlier about sort of what's under the purview. It's like technically not, but at the same time, I think as a political body making that statement, we would like to do 3C. We think we're going to, we're comfortable enough with this that we can give that, sort of direction and guidance. I think sends a message that you're committed to that. That's helpful. And obviously, another source of funds that, we're always willing to take donations. So if people want to donate directly to the district, they're welcome to. It comes before you for acceptance. So that's also another source if people are willing or wanting to do that kind of donation process directly. So there may be people that are like, I got another, $5,000 I want to give directly for this because I want to make it happen and be a part of that. So those are all options there. And I think, what moving ahead now with the 3C gives clear guidance to our designers. And we've got a few steps we can take in the meantime, just to secure some more funding. And, there's some risk there that we could get to, when we want to go to bid and still be short of money that and have to scale the project in a way we're not comfortable with. But I think the risk of that's pretty low at this point. So that's really, my intention here, is to sort of share that thinking and that approach to how we can kind of do this and kind of keep the more robust project in play.
Excellent, thank you, Doug. Jennifer?
I move to direct the interim superintendent to have SLR Inc. develop designs for option 3C and to structure the bid documents to include add alternates to provide project flexibility relative to available funding.
I second.
Second.
I think William got it. Okay. Discussion, Sarah?
Yeah, so I'm very much in favor of moving forward. By my calculations, if we have add alternates, everything you list in your memo, then the funding shortfall drops to only about $240,000. And if you can tell us that you will be going to Amherst CPA committee with a request very soon on the order of $756,000, which was the amount of free cash we asked Amherst, or amount of money we asked the town for, and they said, no, please go ask CPA. So if you ask them for that much money, and they look kindly upon that, then we've certainly got enough money to do the project with all these add alternates, pulled out.
Yeah, what I'll say is this, sort of thinking about the request of CPA funds, when we originally sort of projected numbers for our requests of CPA from all 4 communities, we used the same assessment method we use for our regional capital assessments. So I take that similar approach, but I want to also consider the appropriations the town of Amherst has already made in that context. So when we go for an ask, I want to keep that in mind. And so, the previous appropriations of almost $950,000 from Amherst, because they did $157,500 for design and then another $800,000. So I want to be respectful of that original CPA appropriation when making the ask. Now, will the ask for the Amherst CPA, the additional ask that will go to, what might that be? I think, myself and David Zomack, who's sitting here, we had a conversation about that today for a few minutes, and sort of what's the right sort of number, and some of that's also based in what do we ask the other 3 communities, what can they afford, how does it fit into their capital, because any one of them could say no, and others may say yes, and we have to sort of cope with those, and I want to be cognizant of a request that sort of balances that same logic of sort of the capital appropriation, because it's kind of based on students and it's based on ability to pay.
Can I say, I don't understand, if we were willing to ask Amherst Town Council for an additional $756,000, why don't we just make that ask of CPA? So that's what I'm saying, is if they didn't seem averse to the number, they just wanted CPA to want us to go to CPA and ask for that.
Yeah, I think
so.
I think that's a consideration. I think there's, some of it.
And secondly, I mean, because if the other towns are not going to make a decision on any CPA request until after we have to sign a contract, because of supplanting, we can't just say, oh, right now we'll use our capital stabilization fund, and if Leverett and Pelham come through with money, we'll just use their CPA money. We can't do that.
Right.
So we have to get it from Amherst or our capital stabilization fund to be able to move forward. Because that's, I think, the only money we're basically sure to have by the end of December, or,
Right, potentially, yeah. But I mean, I think it's still an open question. I haven't asked the question of Leverett, Shrewsbury, and Pelham about their cycle, but.
Yeah.
Bridget?
So I was at the FinCom meeting where FinCom said in Amherst that they would want us to go to the other town CPAs also to take their share. And when we go back to the original proposal, there was $240,000 that was split up, I think how Doug is saying, between the three towns. So I have an idea. Tell me if it makes sense to you. But we've got all these alternates, right? And I think what we need to do is be strategic about the order of what to do and what our priorities are for the project, and then put a chunk that we're asking Amherst for, and then Shutesbury's probably gonna have a December meeting, so then a chunk that we're asking for there, and then Leverett and Pelham in the spring, so that we're organizing it in such a way that we can go ahead, like, I think we have to have Amherst for the lights, but maybe not, maybe someone else has a different opinion on that. But to make a plan that's sort of strategic and lays out who to go to when, and then when that's all done, then we can, then Doug and those folks can decide, okay, what's still not done is X, and we could use this percent or amount of capital stabilization, which leads me to my last question, like, how much money is in that fund?
Trying to recall. I want to say $484,000
Okay, all right.
in totality right now.
So I'll just say something about like the construction aspect of it. So when you have your base bid, and then you have to decide when you sign the contract what alternates you're doing, and you have to do them in order. So you can't do like alternate 3, but not alternate 1 and 2. So they should be thoughtful about the order that they're in, but if they're happening after that initial contract is signed, then it has to be a separate contract, because you can't, like, oh, we now have this money and we want to put some ball safety netting up, because it is not within the original scope of the project. You can't add it in after. So, just a little construction. Anna?
You don't have to rebid that, though. You do have to rebid the ad if we don't, okay, so it'll be a whole new process
Well,
if we don't
it would
do
be
it
a
right
different
away.
procurement. So it would, but it's a much smaller procurement. It's not to say it's, easy, and it doesn't have quite the overhead of, the full project. When you're bidding a project that's, $4 million, approximately, that's the sort of, component pieces of putting all that together is a little more onerous. When you do a much more focused project, especially a small enough one, there's certain thresholds that require certain more extensive, work for preparation. So some are more modest to do than others. But some, have all the sort of same kind of bells and whistles, but we can leverage a lot of what we get out of this design and this procurement process we can, basically copy and paste a little bit.
You're not totally starting from zero, but
So
Jennifer?
that was actually just sort of like an add-on
Oh,
question, but
okay.
I just had a couple questions about the actual design that's being proposed. So one of the things that's been bothering Maria Kopicki is the size of the interior field, which appears to be larger in the non-reoriented field than in the reoriented field, while still saying that the reoriented field is going to be bigger. And so the cubic yards are more in the original location than in the future reoriented location. So the question is that a typo, or is it actually a smaller amount of soil in the reoriented field? I thought it was like maybe shorter and fatter, but then she was saying that it's not that way. So is it actually shorter and fatter, or is it just a typo? Because it kind of matters.
Mr. Zoe might be able to answer this more quickly and more
Excellent.
accurately than I can, so.
Fantastic.
And
Best to
Bob's
ask, 'cause,
parents trying to get into.
yeah, Bob may offer some suggestion about that.
So Bob Parent is on the call, and I think if we brought him in, Bob is an engineer, and he's also worked with Doug and myself in SLR on this. I believe Kevin from SLR answered this question last time, or at the town council meeting, which is in option 3C, north-south orientation. The field meets all regulations for the largest necessary field. I believe that is a regulation soccer field.
Yes.
I want to be careful here that we not mix up the size of the field with the amount of soil that might need to be moved or relocated based on the north-south orientation or the east-west orientation. But again, Bob is an engineer and could probably address this, but the bottom line here is the north-south orientation, we get a larger field than in the east-west orientation. I also want to remind everybody that we get two fields if we go north-south, and they're both facing north-south. Clearly, the western field would not be of the same quality because we're going to pay much more for the field inside the track. But Bob is here, and I'm sure he has an answer for that question on cubic yards of soil. But they're related, but two different things.
Bob, would you like to join us?
Certainly. I'm actually, Kevin is listening in and sent me a message that indicated that the track is shorter and fatter, and the zones are fully paved in option 3, and that the field is wider than the existing. As he indicated, the D zones, and it's just shorthand that I don't completely follow, the D zones are fully paved. I believe that's in the north-south orientation that he's referring to. And there may be some differences relative to what the existing elevations are if you orient the field in the north-south orientation, such that it may require more or less regrading than turning it in the other direction because of how it fits into the existing contours.
Thank you. All right, Jennifer.
Okay, so the motion on the table is the one in Doug's memo, and it's about directing SLR to move forward to 3C with the ad alternates. It doesn't mention or dictate the sources of funding that we would then pursue, but it seems like we're talking about everything. So I wanted to say that regarding the sources of funding that we would pursue, I want to know if the committee can or wants to encourage, request, instruct, direct the superintendent to, please allow me to finish, to submit applications to the CPACs in each town as soon as possible, and to do as much as possible to expedite that process, including being proactive about contact. I mean, Doug said he would do some of that, but I kind of want to encourage / direct instruct the superintendent to like be assertive / aggressive and like just submit the applications and not ask like, hey, are you meeting anyway? But just like submit them and then let the towns decide how they're going to address it or not. And so I don't know if that needs to be a vote of the committee or if we can just like communicate to Doug, we really want you to do this quickly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll say this about the CBA process. So in Amherst, it's an online form. I look to see if it's available. It's not. They basically make it available and they turn it off. So I've got to work with Mr. Zomack and the town to sort of get either a different copy of it, get that going. It's literally, later this week or next week, I'm going to start working on that. And I think for the other three communities, really the risk is if they're not going to deal with it, it could get lost. And I say this with all seriousness. It sounds a little silly, but it does happen. They, in one of the towns, I don't remember which one, you are to submit like 10 hard copy because they give a physical copy to each of the committee members. And so I had an application. I sent it hard copy. I didn't send an electronic copy, and they didn't know we had sent the application because I hadn't emailed them as well. So I just worry if it's a long time before they're even going to look at them that it could get kind of lost. That being said, I know what the forms look like, and I'm going to start filling them out. I've filled them out before. I'll fill them out again. I think the thing that really is sort of thinking about what's the right number to ask, and it sort of seems, I'll say the word appropriate. I don't know if that's really, sort of balanced in a way that has, some logic to it. And so those are all things that will be happening soon. And it's really, as we heard from Mr. McLeod earlier, he's like, I'm ready to call the meeting, it's 48-hour notice. I mean, he didn't quite say it that way, but basically he's ready to have the conversation with the Amherst one. So, and like I said, I'll reach out to the town administrators in the other three communities and talk to them about what they've got planned. So if Shrewsbury's going to have a meeting in December, maybe they'll take an off cycle. So I'm going to find out if that's a possibility. But we'll get the forms filled out and sent in as soon as possible.
Deb?
3 priorities, and they're all high, but the order of mine are track, safe field, north-south orientation. So one of the things that sticks in my mind from Kevin's presentation here is the fact that there's a decent drainage system under the field, and it was the compaction of the soil above that was preventing it from draining. So one of the things he talked about was like punching holes in it. But from that, I surmised, and perhaps incorrectly, that it was the maintenance of the fields that caused that compaction. So my question is, and then of course he said, so $10,000, if we were to source this out, $10,000 per year per acre, or per acre per year, and it's about 2 acres. So I couldn't figure out if that's built into our budget, if the town does it. How are we going to prevent this same thing from happening to whatever field we put in?
So I think there's 2 things. So from a budgeting standpoint, we have, in our athletic department budget, in that revolving fund budget, we have, and we need to revisit the names of the different categories of things, but some funding for field maintenance is a part of that.
Yeah.
And, we have a cooperative arrangement with the town of Amherst around some of the, field care and use of the fields.
Okay.
I think the critical question for the new fields, plural, I'll say it fields, is the management of hours. Of playable hours, and that's the hard thing with a natural surface, is that the number of playable hours is a lot less, and so that's going to be a critical component for us. We've, as I think Dave, you've said this about our trails in town too. It's like we kind of love them to death in a way, and it's hard to maintain them at the level we'd like to, and that's going to be a critical component for us as we take on this facility. Is whether we budget it with an outside firm to do it, whether we do it in-house, and it's sort of split across a number of budgets, whether it be town budgets or regional school budgets. I think the really critical thing is and especially with this level of investment in a field and you know, is being cognizant of hours of play and how much they can tolerate. We've not had a field that will be in a north-south you know, what we're talking about in the north-south orientation. We've not had a field with that level of sophistication ever. And we're not unusual in that regard. I mean, most schools don't have those kind of things until they do a project, you know, because doing, you know, turf fields in this day and age is a whole different animal than what it was even 15 years ago, 20 years ago. The sophistication of what people do around drainage and, you know, soil compositions and irrigation and all of that stuff is much more complex to get more playable hours out of the field. And, you know, we've not had one like this before. So having, you know, sort of made that effort, I think it's incumbent upon us, you know, and the town as partners a lot of times, because we share the spaces, you know, kind of keep an eye on that and make sure that we're not, you know, grinding it down to nothing. I mean, that's part of what prompted the whole master planning process for us with the town, was to look at all the fields and the across town, particularly focused downtown, but across town, and think about what's the capacity and the demand, and you know, that may be a point of frustration. You know, we sort of build this beautiful field, and it's like, oh, it's beautiful, why aren't we out there more? It's like, well, because you have to let them rest or they don't stay that way, and the recovery is pretty lengthy sometimes. So I think that's going to be one of the hard things to manage, you know, expectations around, both from playable hours, but also, you know, maintenance and care. So we're going to have to really be thoughtful about how we approach that, for sure.
So just follow up. So I saw in the revolving funds, there's athletic, what is it? Grounds contracted services, but there's also contracted services. So there's two lines, and one is 45,000. Is that where that would come from?
That's some of it, yeah. I mean, you know, that's not exclusively. I mean, we also, you know, some of the, you know, we buy grass seed, so that's not under contracted services. That's going to be under, you know, I forget the titles of the fields, but it's, you know, it's going to be athletic supplies or something like that. It's in the same category as, you know, replacement basketballs and softballs and that, I mean, some of that kind of thing. So it's a bit blended, you know, and we'll have to be diligent in our budgeting in our athletics budget, and then correspondingly thinking about what are our athletics fees that create that to sort of support this over time. And we'll revisit conversations on, you know, how we share the fields with the town, and, you know, who's providing what service and how much, and, you know, does that still feel balanced and appropriate?
Good. Yep.
We're gonna need an MOU. We're gonna need a memorandum of understanding with the town, because as Doug said, this is a once in a generation build for this facility, and when we get it, we want to care for it. So we're gonna need an MOU. What are the town's roles and responsibilities? What are the schools, regional schools' responsibilities? And where's the money coming from? And we'll have time now, between now and when this opens, to figure out those responsibilities, clarify them through you and the town manager and the superintendent of public works, and put some dollars to them as well. And if the decision is made to outsource that, that's a decision that will come. Or do we think we can do it in-house? But, and to Doug's point about playability, we're gonna have to figure out that as well in that MOU. Who makes those decisions? How do we care for the field when it is summertime, and we make sure it doesn't get damaged by just random play, which it's gonna be an attraction. Go out there and throw a football, throw a baseball, whatever. So, but it's a great opportunity, so I will cross that bridge with you and with the town in the months ahead.
Anna?
So, I wanted to, I need to write this stuff down, because then it just like blows out of my mind really quickly. So I wanted to talk about funding for just a minute. Amherst CPA has indicated an interest in ensuring that the north-south orientation is possible. I think the other towns are not expecting to be hit with a request that is substantially above what was initially proposed to go to them about. And so I think in the interest of not getting the money, I would try to make the request to the other 3 towns somewhat in line with what was previously proposed, as opposed to greatly inflating it because Amherst has already provided some funding. I think that we need to, the strategy that I would take is to go with what people have already expressed as willing to contribute. And Amherst definitely has said, yes, go to the other towns too, but I don't think that they have said, you need to ask for double the amount that you had originally asked them for, or any, variation thereof. I think they just want the other towns to contribute also, and I think that's fair. But I would be careful about over asking and not being able to get the money, because I think everybody realizes that the fiscal situation is tight everywhere. And if Amherst does seem to have an appetite to support a chunk of this, and they're the fastest to be able to move on this, I think we do need to secure some ability to fund stuff now. And getting the other towns to contribute may take a little bit longer, and we just need to make sure that we secure what we can now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it absolutely, and I wouldn't, the things I've been looking at are not sort of doubling the ask, and it's also, 4 years later, and it's also a circumstance where one of the reasons to ask for CPA is because, and especially in the smaller towns, the match from the state is essentially half the money's from the state as opposed to local, half of it's local and half of it's state. In Amherst, their reimbursement is not quite as high as that. And that it can't be used for other things, right? You can't buy a fire truck with this stuff. So that's another, it is aligned with some goals and intention of the CPA as a separate and additional property tax. Yeah, so that calculus of how much to ask for is absolutely, it's partly a political question, and it's also just a resource question, because I looked at what each of the communities receives in their CPA funding kind of year over year. And the thing is 3 of the towns are 3% communities, and Shutesbury is a 1.5% community. So their resources are much less as far as CPA dollars. And I don't know, what I don't know is how they've been spending it. So some of them have been, if you don't have projects, the money kind of stacks up. And that's not to say they're wasting it or not using it for intended purposes or anything of that sort. But they're sometimes waiting for a project they really want to invest in. And so, I don't know the status of those. And that's part of the conversation with the administrators in those towns to say, hey, where's your CPA fund sit? How are you doing there? Amherst has taken a pretty aggressive approach and used borrowing sometimes, which other communities don't do. They pay cash straight out for stuff. Amherst has wanted to take on some really bigger projects over the years in different areas and has done borrowing. Matter of fact, the couple of requests that we currently have with them are going to require a borrowing, and so they're kind of committing future dollars in some respects to that. So those are all parts of the puzzle there, and yeah, it's a nuanced thing about how much is too much, and yet also recognize, well, we aren't where we were when we first put the numbers together in 2020. So it's all that sort of, in my head, juggling around a little bit at the moment and trying to think through that a little bit. And, the other thing I'll say is that, we can make a request to the CPA. They can then fund at whatever level. So if we ask for $100,000 and they're like, we love it, we don't have it, or we don't want to spend that much, we're going to give you 70. We're still going to say yes, and it'll be what it'll be. And some, we may get funding from 3 of the towns. One of the towns says, sorry, we don't have it, or we don't want to, or whatever. It's got to go to town meeting. So it'll be what it'll be there. So we could be in that situation too. So we have to consider all those contingencies in part of the planning and some of the strategies we have. But yeah, I appreciate the thoughts.
Bob, did you have something you wanted to add in?
You're muted.
Oops. Sorry, I didn't realize I had my hand up, but I did actually want to go back to one of the items that was brought up previously regarding adding project components after the project has been bid and awarded. That is done all the time via executing change orders, even if the contract is awarded based on, alternate 1 and alternate 2. If we're successful in obtaining money after the fact, say to move ahead with alternate number 3, we can still negotiate that price with the contractor. And we would expect them, if not to honor their bid for that alternate, to be close to that, or we could choose to rebid it independently if we wanted to. But there's no obligation to rebid independently, providing you're doing work related to what was originally put out to bid, which all of these alternates would be.
Sarah?
Yeah, I just want to make this explicit. The responsibility for moving this project along and filing the CPA applications, that's going to stay with you.
Yes.
That is not going to be handed off in a week to our new
No,
superintendent.
it's traditionally a finance director
Yeah.
responsibility. So when we did the original applications and any subsequent ones we've done, they've all been ones that I've done. And when we've done them in other districts that you all are familiar with, for other projects, it's the business office that tends to do that, because most of the questions are of a, sort of financial nature, and, we might seek narrative, advice on the narrative around it a little bit, but that's gonna stay with me.
Okay, thank you.
Bridget?
I just wanted to say, I don't know before when I was talking about the money, if I made it clear first, I'm voting for 3C. And the reason is because when I heard SLR present to the town council, they talked to that issue that Doug talked about with playability. And that sinking field is going to take a lot of pressure, not as much because it's not as high quality of a field, but pressure off the playable hours on the other field. And having that sort of 1-2 punch seems to me like for a small step up in money, we gain a lot. And so I know people say they can't play with sun in their eyes, but I always did, so I don't really see the big deal with that piece, but that was the piece that sold me on the project.
Jennifer?
I call the question.
All right. So now we vote to call the question. A vote yes, no more discussion. A vote no, we continue discussion. William?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Bridget?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes, but I have a question at the end.
Yes.
Anna? Tillman?
Yes.
And Sarah Vest, yes. Okay. So the question has been called. We immediately go to vote on our motion. Would you like to read it again?
I move to direct the interim superintendent to have SLR Inc. develop designs for option 3C and to structure the bid documents to include add alternates to provide project flexibility relative to available funding.
All right. William?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Bridget?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Tillman?
Yes.
And Sarah Beth? Yes. It is unanimous. Fantastic. Yay! Okay.
I
Yep.
assured the town council that you guys really wanted to do 3C. I did, and now you have.
Yay!
You were right.
Okay.
And it was wonderful to see their support for this.
Yeah.
All right. Next up.
Can I just say thank
Oh,
you before I
yes,
leave? Thank you very
absolutely.
much. My presence here, about parents' presence, SLR is Kevin. This is a great team. We're going to support Doug and the new superintendent and all of you in moving this forward. That's why we're here. This is a huge investment for the town. We all get it, and for the region. But it's a joint project. It'll be on regional land, but we're going to get it to the finish line. So thank you all.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank
Dave,
you very
for
much.
shepherding the project.
Thank you for coming and bringing all your wealth of information with you. Okay, next up, we have the FY24 Budget Cost Center adjustments.
So, if you've been to the other two school committee meetings, the text is almost identical to what you've seen. So what this does, so what we're doing here is, we're closing out the fourth quarter. I mean, technically fiscal year ends on Sunday. We're trying to evaluate as best we can at this point. There's still bills trickling in, things that we need to do. We're projecting out our salaries for the end of the year, et cetera, we're trying to, sort of balance the books and come in, on budget, ideally just a little under budget, to be perfectly honest. So, what I've done is gone through where we're at the moment, thinking about the leveraging of the resources that are appropriated and those that are also in grants, like our ESSER grants and other things, and where we'll apply those. And we knew, by virtue of the conversations we've had throughout the year around some areas of our budget that have been struggling. So special education is not surprising. It needs a pretty significant boost in funding. And what this is doing is the action you're taking will be to acknowledge that there are needs in some areas of the budget that were different than what we thought they were going to be. And so the way the reality of the budget has played out versus what we budgeted. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. We've talked about those through the quarterly reports. We'll do a full, fourth quarter report early in the school year, where we'll kind of give the final tally on all of these things. But the idea here is there's some places that have some resource we didn't tap into. Utilities have been, fortunate. We've had a kind of mild winter. We didn't use as much, gas and electricity, et cetera. We've had some other areas that have come in under budget. And so those are resources, and we can apply those to things that have come in above what we expected. So our substantive cost is more. Obviously, our special education costs have been considerably more. Some of that's by virtue of staffing questions and having to contract services because we can't hire the staff, and some of that's just a greater level of need that we've experienced. Central administration is tied to a few different things. Some of it legal bills, some of it investigations, because when they finished is in, sort of when we paid the bills is in this fiscal year, not in previous fiscal year. So that's some of what's in that. There are other things there as well. We've had, we are implementing some new software, so there's a little bit there that was a little above what we expected it to be. And so, some of these are more noticeable than others. Some are not unexpected, but were not what we budgeted. So when we had conversations about budget a year and a half ago versus what played out, it's different. So that's what these are trying to reflect is sort of a balancing of some funding between different areas of our budget. But I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have about any of this, and of course, obviously, sort of, the action would be to authorize the shifting of funds between those different areas of the budget.
Jennifer?
I move to modify the fiscal 24 operating budget by making budget transfers between cost centers as shown in the intern superintendent's memo dated June 25th, 2024.
Second.
Excellent. All right. Any quick discussion because it's already 10 o'clock? Fantastic. William?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Bridget?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Tillman?
Yes.
And Sarah Vess? Yes. Excellent.
Thank you.
I move to extend the meeting by 30 minutes.
Second.
All right. Tillman?
No.
Sarah Beth, yes. Anna?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Bridget?
No.
Jennifer?
Yes.
William?
Yes.
All right, we have 30 minutes. Go.
I, William Scher, authorized by my signature in the payables on 6/12/2024, $167,160.10. General fund expenses of $167.58.87. Revolving fund expenses of $101.23. That was dated on 6/12. I, William Scher, authorized by my signature to the high school student activities warrant in the amount of $23,797.32 dated on June 12, 2024. I, William Scher, authorized by my signature in the amount of $1,103,734.90 on 6/26/2024. That's when it's dated. I signed it today.
Okay.
And I'm trying to figure out what it's for.
I think it's payroll.
It's payroll. Okay, sorry. Some of them, I think that the payroll one shows up differently than the other one. On 6/18/2024, I, William Scher, authorized by my signature, payables in the amount of $637,539, which includes general fund expenses of $459,159.54, revolving fund expenses of $43,507.90, grant fund expenses of $102,046.32, gifts of $22,548.45, and capital of $9,743.18. That was my last one.
Excellent, thank you. We do not have any gifts. Superintendent's update?
School ended Thursday. Happy summer to everybody. Thank you for the evaluation. Appreciate it. It's been a pleasure serving you all and the students.
All right, future agenda planning. Jennifer.
So we need to populate the subcommittee that we voted on at our last meeting.
Sustainability.
Whatever we called it, Sustainability Revenue Subcommittee. The Amherst Town Council voted last night to send us a letter, which, have you received it, Sarah Bess?
I have not.
Okay, well, it
As
says
of the
things.
last time I checked my email this afternoon at 6, no, I have not.
It says things, and I think one of the things it says or suggests is that we call a meeting, a joint meeting by August 1st. I'm not sure if that's like the meeting has to take place by August 1st or we have to call it by August 1st. Anyway, we need to populate that subcommittee. And also I think that we need to start, I'm leading to, I think we need to meet virtually in July, at least once. I think we need to start this process of considering next year's budget, working on the budget, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think we can wait until August. Our first scheduled meeting is August 27th. Possibly there'll be a retreat on August 20th. I don't think we can wait that long. So at the next meeting, hopefully, I mean, it'll be in July because it's already the end of June. I think we should meet virtually and have that on the agenda, populating the subcommittee as well as other things.
Okay, thank you. Sarah?
I agree with that suggestion, and I would, if we have a meeting in July, then I would like to receive then, or by then, what is the FY25 budget? We know the number, we know that I don't think we have the budget. Like, what has been put back, what are the cuts?
Oh.
I mean, we know the amount, we know is 6%, but I don't think we've seen the document. And I don't think I can answer the public about, so what did we put back and what is being cut? So you don't have to answer that now, but I think we should have a final document.
No, we'll put a final budget together. I mean, until they actually voted, which was last night, you know, there wasn't the ability to do that. And literally conversations, you know, with business office staff today, it's like, well, exactly where does that land? Because when you start, you know, if you think back to the sort of adds and cuts page, we use sort of round numbers for things when we, you know, when we're at this point, this late with getting approval and that sort of thing, you know, we can be more precise in some ways with that. And as far as, you know, what is this add back versus that add back, we can be a little more precise. And it's sometimes, you know, you can over-focus on that too, and it's not productive because, as you saw, we just adjusted $1 million in money from one, you know, from budget area to budget area. I will say this, you know, when you think about the budget areas that you know, control sort of movement in, that looks the same as it did when you voted on a 6% budget. So those numbers are accurate. So, you know, how much in regular education, how much in special education, how much in contracted salaries, how much in substitutes, how much in each of those other category areas, that still matches. the specifics of what and exactly how staff are tasked and what things are gonna fully be replaced are mostly in place, and we're sort of sorting through that. Partly because we're needing to notify staff with what's called a salary notice, so we're in that process, and then, this is a sort of articulating that and putting that budget in place. So we'll put a full budget document together. It'll take us a little bit to do it, just to get, mostly because it's tedious. It's 175 pages long, and it's, kind of tedious. But we'll get that put together now to you guys when we get it, kind of buttoned up. And I think that, we'll make sure that we've accounted for, it's roughly $450,000 of additional resource that was made available. So we'll go through the particulars of that and send that out to you all.
Okay, William?
So I asked last time for future agenda planning, the cell phone policy for middle school and high school, and if currently the middle schools do not have their phones for the entire day, is that something we could look at rolling up for the high school for discussion? And the other thing is, and I apologize, this is going back to the track, just one quick statement, is Doug, Pelham is dark sky, low light. Don't ask Pelham for lighting. Just
we can they can pay for something else.
right. So just don't I was just when you do the
Yeah,
add-ons,
yeah.
don't ask him for that because we're dark sky.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
Bridget?
So, sorry, it's late, y'all.
Yeah.
Our school equity advisory committee has written a new charge. We have some data we'd like to bring forward on both discipline and academic disparities. And in the fall, we're gonna look to sort of like populate the committee with more community members. So if it were something that were either in that July meeting or in the first meeting in the fall, it would be
Early
great.
in the year?
Yeah.
Okay. Jennifer, did you have another?
Yeah, sorry, I know it's late, I just, now I can't let this go unsaid. Has to do with the budget and also has to do with future agenda planning. Okay, I'm gonna describe something that happened on the Amherst School Committee, but I'm not like deliberating or discussing, I'm just describing what happened, which is that earlier this year for the Amherst School Committee, we had a budget issues. We were presented with cuts, specifically for the instrumental teachers, and so much of the public comment we got was urging us to not cut the instrumental teacher positions. And then the town of Amherst told us they could give us an extra percentage, and we as a school committee voted to encourage or instruct, I don't remember the exact wording, the superintendent to restore those positions. And we were told we could do that. We could vote to instruct or direct or encourage the superintendent to restore those positions. And so I wish that the budget was on today's agenda. So my question is, I think, Doug, you told us last time that the world language cuts were still going to be made, but with the number of days that 7th and 8th graders were going to have world language, they'd still be able to start high school at the second level of the language. But now from the public comment we got from the language instructors, that sounds it sounds a little fuzzy to me, and is that still the case? And so possibly by our July meeting, it will be too late, but can we add to our July meeting a discussion of this body as to whether or not we can and whether or not we want to encourage the superintendent to restore the world language positions at the middle school? Thank you.
If I can just clarify something real
Yep.
quick. So just to clarify, so I think I want to make sure we draw the distinction between what was offered in public comment, which is about, hours of learning, over the course of the full length of study, and where we were, where we are, et cetera. When I spoke to you earlier, I was talking about when we look at how the level 1 course is taught at the high school and the amount of contact hours kids have in that class compared to what they get at the middle school over a 2-year period. The middle school, even with the newer, projected schedule, still has more hours than what happens in the high school. So that's one, it's not as many as what they had, but the total contact hours over that 2-year period is more. So the capacity to deliver the curriculum of a level 1 course over that 2 period is still it's less, let me put it in a different way. There's more hours available to do it in, even with the cut that we've made. That's really the distinction I'm drawing. I'm not saying that what we have at the high school level for that level 1 class is the right number of hours. That's a different conversation and that sort of thing. One of the complications and one of the difficulties at the secondary level relative to what restorations we can and cannot make are driven pretty significantly by the schedule and what schedules we have. And at this point, we're in the hiring process, so there is possibility to hire, but I don't want to overstate negative or positive around that. But I think that, but the shape of the schedule and what impact that has is pretty significant. So it would be difficult from a scheduling standpoint to add back the world language. My understanding of this. So I'm not saying I'm a master of the schedules, but there are other needs that are ranked higher in our administrators' minds as needs for kids, around counseling supports and intervention supports and that sort of thing. And I think the other thing is that it's difficult to add back some of world language, but not all of it. So there'll be, so I'll have to ask that question a little bit about the scheduling, about what's possible. So I don't want to overstate it one way or the other. So I think, but it is complicated by schedule to add back world language because of its impact on other things, other offerings, other FTEs in other departments, that sort of thing. So it's not as straightforward as it might seem in sort of just adding back. At the elementary, it's simpler because the nature of the class structure is so much more simple. So to add back in an elementary building, to add back, the instrumental music, for example, from a scheduling standpoint, is much simpler than with the, 7-day drop one alternating kind of schedules that middle schools and high schools have. It just gets a lot more complicated to fit the meeting times in properly, and this, with the other courses that are also being offered, and striking the right balance of meeting times and that. So it's, that's not to advocate one way or the other. I'm just speaking to what the schedule structure starts to impose upon us at this point. But I can pose the questions a little bit more.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Sorry, I know it's late. So I'm familiar with the 7-drop-1 at the middle school, but are we also now implementing this AB thing because of the world language cut? Like, is there now going to be a 7-drop-1 and there's also going to be an AB thing? Like, one day it's, is that right? No,
I'm not recalling off the top of my head, to be honest, with regard to that.
I think we're also pretty far off.
Yeah.
Future agenda.
Okay.
We can talk about it. Yep. Okay, is there anything else you are all also, Deb?
So in addition to populating those subcommittees, I would like to have a discussion about availability of certain kinds of information that I'm going to need to, if I'm going to be on either of those committees to do that work. So not just the population, but just conversations around accessing data.
Oh, okay.
Staff support for your work.
No. I just like numbers that I don't know necessarily how to get.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything further? If you think of something more, you're welcome to email me. I will, when Dr. Herman starts next week, I will work with her about getting something on the calendar. Okay. Jennifer?
I move we adjourn.
I will second that. William?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Bridget?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Tillman?
Yes.
And Sarah Beth? Yes, we are adjourned.